Oh, this is the podcast studios brought to you by Machine Inc. Welcome, everybody.
James,
Jonathan,
great to have you.
great to be here. That's a lovely intro you have.
Thank you. I made it myself.
Nice.
So, you just got back from out of town.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, I was out in Charlotte.
And you're starting a new position doing banking, which you've always been doing.
Yeah, this is year going in 17, year 17.
That's a long time.
It is a
Was
long
that
time.
2008?
Was hired in December of '08, started in January.
So during the crash.
Yeah, wonderful time to be graduating with a degree in finance. Yeah, I mean, it was, the funny thing about that though was that job came about from before I went to college. I did the motorcycle stuff.
Yep.
And it just so happened that my resume at the time was all my motorcycle stuff because I had no like actual work experience.
Yeah.
So
They don't look at that on your resume?
I mean, I put it on my resume because it was like that's what when most people went to college, that's what I was doing. So I had like this gap. So it just so happened that I spammed my resume like literally across the globe. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, everywhere trying to find something. And
You went to Thailand, didn't you, or something? Sorry.
that was when I was in school.
Okay.
So I did a study abroad. So I bounced around Southeast Asia for a little bit, and then I did a semester in China.
Oh, you did a semester in China?
Yep.
How was that?
Awesome. It was fantastic. It was such a great experience that I regret not doing it earlier. So I did it in my second to last semester.
Okay.
So then I when I came back, I graduated like 3 months later. And I lived with a Chinese family in their apartment, like in a suburb of Shanghai. It was.
How long did you do that?
So I was in Asia for like 5 months.
And that's one class then when you study abroad, or you still?
No, I was 3 classes.
Okay.
When I was there, and I spent like a month before class started bouncing around Southeast Asia. So then I was in like Thailand and Malaysia and Singapore, and then I went to Hong Kong and India.
So you went a month early just to kick it.
Yep.
That's so cool.
It is cool because the only reason I was able to do that was my professors allowed me to take my finals early.
Oh.
Because I told them, I was like, hey, I got into the study abroad program. I want to go. Can I take my exams early so that I can leave before, the semester starts? And
yeah.
Fortunately, they were like, yeah, fine. I mean, if you want to take them and fail them, it's, it's on you. So
You're always bright, though. I'm sure you did good.
I did okay. All right. I mean, school was one of those things I didn't really like, but I just wanted to get it over with. So I would just like, get hyper focused and try to jam through it.
Yeah.
So then I left and bounced around a little bit, and then went to East China Normal University in Shanghai.
East China Normal?
That's what it's called. It's actually a school I think their specialty is degrees for teachers. Pretty sure is what they focus on. But I took a class in economics, doing business in China, and then Chinese.
Oh, cool.
And then lived with the family.
Have you done any business in China?
No, I wanted to, like really bad.
Yeah.
So while I was there, I was trying to figure out how to get a job or an internship or something there.
To stay?
Yeah.
If you you need that to stay, right?
Yeah, because you need a visa or you need someone to sponsor you or something,
Is it hard? Is it like getting into America? Or is it like easier?
I don't know. But from a timing perspective, it was almost impossible because that was during the Olympics.
Oh.
So that was Beijing 2008.
Okay.
So like even moving around in China, you needed to check in, get permission from a police station. And then when you arrived in the city that you went to, you had to check in and show them your paperwork and get stamped.
Oh, wow.
So they were like really controlling where you were within the country.
Okay.
So
Just you or everyone? Like
foreigners,
all foreigners?
Yeah.
They know where you're at
Yeah,
all times.
all times. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So but I don't know if that was just related to the Olympics. Like that could have been just
Oh, I
because
got you. Yeah.
you know, they knew a bunch of foreigners were coming and they were trying to, you know,
Yeah, they don't want any terrorist attacks, or
Right.
if there are, they want to be able to
Yeah.
know.
who they need to, you know,
Yeah.
throw in the basement. So then the, you know, financial crisis started, and I mean that basically put a
How
kibosh on all finance jobs.
how hard was it to be there as an American? Because you don't speak.
I was learning Chinese. I got to a point where like I could navigate.
Mm-hmm.
I could order food and, you know,
In Chinese.
and
So
get
you're
around.
not an American. You weren't speaking English. Obviously,
I mean,
American's not a
I mean, they
language.
don't. Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to find somebody that speaks decent English.
Really?
Except like in like downtown Shanghai, because
Okay.
it's a pretty it's a city that has a lot of expats in it. There's a
Okay.
lot of That's one of the major, you know, financial hubs for China is in Shanghai actually. So
Okay.
you could go in there and you know, run across people that speak English or Australians or whatever. But once
Yeah.
you got outside of like that area, it was really difficult to find someone speaking English. But what was super cool was that um, that people loved it. Like when I would try to speak Chinese, they would
Yeah.
just like wait for me to, you know, work a phrase out, you know, because it's, you know, I'm translating in my head and stuff, and then they'd be like super happy. They would help me, like if I made a mistake, they'd correct it, you know, but like
Yeah.
in a friendly way.
Yeah.
Compared to like when I go to France, like I, as of right now, like I speak decent French,
Yeah.
and like I know that they can understand me, and you know, and like in Paris, like you'll still get people that are just like, oh, no, and they'll look around and say, you're just like, you know what I'm saying, like I know I got an accent, but you get it, you know.
That's what I do to my wife. She says something clear as day, and I'm like, "What?
What?
I didn't."
I didn't pick up on that. Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So the stigma is true.
In Paris, I think when you get outside of Paris, it's not like that at all. Like I mean, people are again pretty well receiving. when
Asian
you try-
cultures have a history of being more, I guess, respectful.
Yeah, I think so. I'm also like, I mean, I think there's, I mean, from what I saw when I was there, at least, like, you know, there's not a lot of foreigners in general. So like you stick out as it is,
Yeah.
and then most foreigners don't speak Chinese.
Right.
So like they see a foreigner, and then they see you trying to speak Chinese, and they know it's hard, because like an overwhelming majority of that population, I think it's getting better now, but like a significant portion of the population can't read.
Can't read.
Yeah, because in order to like be able to read and write,
Yeah.
it's, I think like basic fluency is something like, I'll probably get this wrong, but like 3,000 or 4,000 characters.
Oh,
So like you know,
it's a lot.
it's a lot, you know, because it's not like there's an alphabet. There's a system a little bit in the characters that kind of can build a character that may give you some insight to what the actual
Is it like abstract art? Is it like just symbolism, but
Yeah.
not very abstract? Like it's supposed to be like a simplistic representation of.
of a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of how it, my understanding of the evolution of the language is that's kind of where it came from. And that's why it's the characters, is that these were like almost like pictograms of the thing they're trying to represent. Versus something like Korean, where someone created that language and they developed the equivalent of like an alphabet,
Okay.
so that you can build a character with the individual symbols that make a sound.
Okay.
So like Korean's interesting. I don't speak Korean, but the interesting difference that I've learned between them though is that like you could, if you know the Korean alphabet, for example, you could like sound out
you can
something.
sound
Even if you
things
don't
out.
know what it says, you could sound it out. But like that
Doesn't exist.
doesn't exist in Chinese.
Really?
Yeah.
That I didn't know that. I mean, I had an idea. I know it's a difficult language.
It's difficult. Yeah. Well,
So it's
it-
not based on.
reading and writing's difficult. Like, but any speaking language, it sounds.
Yeah.
It's just noise.
Right.
All language is just noise. So from that perspective, it's not terribly complicated. The thing that like is the most interesting for like from a learning perspective is that it has an unbelievably easy grammatical structure.
How so?
So like if you think about in English, right, we have these ways of modifying verbs for past, present, future, or trying to take something for making a possession, right?
Yeah. Something
In
possessive.
in Chinese, it's just you just add a character. So like if something is in the future, right, you just add this character, and that means it's in the future. But also like if you think about the construct of the sentence, and it's kind of you could kind of see it when a native Chinese speaker is learning English, that when they put together like very simplistic grammatical sequences,
Okay.
like, you know, I am artist,
Okay. That's what they'll write.
and because that's the way you'd write it, right? Or like I will be, right? It would be like I am artist and then future.
Okay.
So like if you think about like the speaking component of it,
Right.
once you can get the sounds, that piece of it is definitely easier to pick up on than the reading and writing, which is why you have like a lot of the, outside of the cities, the people that work like mostly in the countryside that don't really read or write. It's just like it's a lot of effort.
Yeah.
But like the speaking is,
Because it's not something you're just following chronologically, because you might catch a symbol you've never seen.
could be, right? But ultimately, like you still need to, you you need to memorize them. Like, you know what I mean? Like you need to see them enough to recognize what that is. And then I'm sure at some point you can, and I think that's why it's like 3,000 or 4,000 characters, where it's like you can basically read whatever, because you can probably figure out the characters that you don't know based around the rest of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That seems so kind of interesting. Like how comparing it to English and how you learn English, like how do you learn that?
Yeah,
It's
right.
Like, it's like how did Helen Keller learn?
It's so
That's
the
what
way
it
that
sounds like.
yeah, I mean, I think the way that I started studying it was like all flashcards and repetition. So like every day I'd have my flashcards and I'd run through the characters, and then I'd write them. I'd write every character out and just write them like,
Does it take a long time to write because you kind of
Yeah.
have to?
yeah. And technically there's like a correct way to write the character. I can't remember now, but it's like I think you're like top to bottom, left to right, or something like that. So like when you're
Okay.
designing the character, like obviously you can draw it however you want, but there is a sequence that's taught the strokes for the character.
So each stroke should always be started and ended
Yeah,
in a certain
certain, yeah.
yeah,
And I
certain
don't
way.
remember that stuff, but yeah, it was just like constant, and then in the Chinese class it would just be a lot of dialogue, and them speaking to us and then trying to respond and then trying to read. What's nice though from the reading is that they developed like they took I forget what it's like, our alphabet, the
Yeah.
equivalent. I forget, there's a name for it, but
Okay.
and they developed something called pinyin, which is basically taking the character and using our alphabet to phonetically spell out how it sounds.
Okay.
So then when you're learning, or when I was learning, you'd have the character, and then underneath it you'd have the pinyin, so that you knew how to make the sound of the character.
Okay.
So then you're like, okay, so now you're trying to, like, they're talking, you're trying to read back, and yeah.
So you're trying to re-enunciate with an
Yeah.
English parallel,
Yeah,
quote
because
unquote.
in Chinese, your tone is super important. There's 4 tones in Chinese, if I remember correctly. There's like
Okay.
a rising tone, a falling tone, a rising falling tone, and then a neutral tone. And the same, let's say, phonetically spelled sound with the different tones has a different meaning. Like I think,
Okay.
like the one that came to mind is ma, like M-A.
Mm-hmm.
So with the different tones,
Yeah.
and I'll probably mess this up, but you could check it.
Yeah.
One sound is like mother.
Okay.
One is horse.
Okay.
The other is slow, I think.
Okay.
and the other one means you're asking a question.
Okay.
So like if you want to turn a sentence into a question, you just put ma at the end, and now it's a question.
And there's 4 inflections.
And there's 4 inflections. So if you get your inflection wrong, right, then it changes the meaning of the sentence.
Someone might be pissed.
Could be, which is why I think
Start talking about their horse.
that's over the, or you know, when you're supposed to be talking about their mom, which could be interpreted, you know, maybe not so great.
Right.
But
Maybe she gives people's tours. The horse.
Yeah, but I think that's why a lot of the you know, the locals they enjoyed trying to speak with with foreigners, you know, because like you're making all these mistakes. You must sound hilarious.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, oh no, that's not the one. You mean this one, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
He wrote his mother here. He came in on his.
He's like, I don't think you did, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It was fun.
So like 4 inflections, you know, that's like not existent in American. It's kind of different, right? I mean,
yeah.
Culturally becomes like subliminal, psychoanalytical, you know, because that's like a subliminal thing people unconsciously like psychoanalyze and re-affect
when you're speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. In English.
In English, right.
Yeah, because our rising and falling tone changes the significance of what you're saying, but not the meaning of it.
Right.
Right.
Like, what are you talking about?
Exactly.
That's a little different.
A little different.
I like it. The Italians, we only got 2 inflections. It's always, oh,
it's up?
Yeah. It's up. Hey, buddy. They have them in other cultures.
Yeah.
But they're not part of the language as far as like written.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
Especially as it relates to meaning.
Right. Which obviously it does. It has a huge.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I think is one of the reasons why it's like an extremely challenging language to learn, because being a native English speaker, you know, your tone inflection has more to do with whether or not you're conveying an emotion in your sentence or asking a question to, you know, for interrogative purposes. But there it's like, so if you think about like when they're going through a sentence, it's like their tone is bouncing all over the place.
Intentionally.
Through a sentence.
Yeah.
Rising, falling, falling, rising, rising, neutral, whatever, you know. And they're controlling that. And that was, from a speaking perspective, incredibly difficult to replicate, but definitely a very challenging thing to listen to. Because it's like hard to hear, was that a falling tone? And like, you know, especially, you know, I didn't get very good at it. I was only studied for a little bit. I'm sure at some point it gets there, but I was still heavily translating in my head.
Right.
But the sentence keeps going. So it's like when you're trying to translate, listen to the tone, but they kept speaking. So now you missed this next piece of it, you know?
Yeah. That is probably the main reason it's so difficult to learn.
I think so. Because the reading and writing part, you could learn that on your own. Just study flashcards, and you can go through. And the same thing goes about losing it, though. Like I stopped looking at my flashcards, and the weird thing happens in my brain, which I think is such a fascinating concept, is that like I'll see characters, and I'll know that I knew what that was, but I don't know what it is now.
Oh, that's familiar.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I know that I knew that. I don't know now.
It's like a house. You like unpack it. You used to know what it was like inside.
That's right.
Now you can't, you know?
You can't. You're just like,
But the house is familiar.
Yeah.
That's interesting, yeah. It's like, how do we remember things and recollect and all that?
How do you remember that you don't remember something? That's a weird thing, right?
Oh, super weird.
Because it's like, but I'm remembering.
Yeah.
So why can't I just
say it?
Fully remember the thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Could be.
Could be.
I mean, who knows? They say there's all this stuff about like gene expression and like DNA being expressed, and that having to do with like your physiology or your biology, and having to do with your posture and how well your body is actually circulating blood. Because if you have a very efficient mechanism and you are not crouched over and you're not thinking and you're breathing well, you're going to have an optimum machine. And that's going to deliver a little more efficiently and effectively. That might be part of it. I don't know.
From gene expression. So you're saying like from your genes kind of dictates how you.
Well, that's what I've thought I've understood based on
I'm-
how much internet I've been traumatized with. Just between, women gym workout sessions for some reason. Apparently, that's my demographic. I don't know why.
That's what they feed you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I look like Ellen DeGeneres. I don't know. maybe there's other reasons.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah. No, I don't know. Well, there's like a whole thing. It's like your higher self, your better self. Like, how do you be that? Like, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Why can, like, as soon as you leave, like maybe like a high intense situation, do you remember something that was like in your idea afterwards, like vital to that situation that didn't even come into your mind? Like,
Yeah, I mean that's an absolutely fascinating thing to think about, right? Because there's also the flip side of that, right? Where it's like you've been in some incredibly traumatic experience and remember none of it.
oh yeah.
And
Well,
then
most of life.
right, and then something will come up, and then you'll remember it,
Yeah.
and you'll be like, "Whoa, where was that?" You
Yeah.
know? Yeah. But that probably all again ties into like the ultimate input for what drives your machine, right? Your body's like your brain or whatever, your mind, however you want to call it, is like, we're gonna keep this. We're not gonna keep that.
I was listening to this Bruce Lee, and I think it's an AI re-rendition, or maybe it's him, but it sounds too monotone to be like an original piece of audio. But that's what it's talking about, like the mind body and like having like sharp mind and like capable body. And then he says he notices in all men that there's a space between the two, and the way that you be your optimum self is not to train the mind and the body separate, but that they're one action.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was saying that whenever he did his work, they were doing like some sort of test where metaphysically, electronically, some way they have some readers or gauges, and how his intention before he would go to do something would put out information. So the idea is an intention is not the mental priming agent for the action. It is part of the action in like a subtle preliminary stance. And then he was saying the more you can eliminate and basically evacuate or get rid of that space so that the intention and the action are simultaneous, then that's when you are like unpredictable. And also, if you can put out an intention strong enough, you can trick people before you move, and he was saying they would defend things he did not move to like throw, more or less, based on his attention. And he was saying this is not a metaphysical, like supernatural power. It's just the result of like practice of a sensitivity. And he was saying that sensitivity starts with the breath and like breathing in at your core and letting your body expand vertically and horizontal in all ways around that. And then, so like, I'm like doing bids and I'm like listening to Bruce Lee, like trying to breathe. Am I breathing it in right? But it's true. Like you don't pay attention, you slouch, your body crunch, you kind of you're sitting in a posture for certain hours. It can't be an optimal scenario for health.
Yeah.
So to bring attention to it, and he's saying basically you bring attention to the subtlety and the awareness, and he's doing that in an extremely sophisticated way.
Yeah.
That's like far beyond probably a verbal explanation, although he articulates it very well. So it's tangible so that it can be implemented.
Practice potentially, yeah.
Yeah, and then reaffirmed for a person to grow those tendencies.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. Like I like to draw, right? Like sometimes, some points, like I can draw perfect circles, right? And I know, and it's like a total feeling. And then like if I'll go to do it and I can't, I'll be mad, because it'll be like, why can't, like, why is it not available?
Yeah.
Like, why are there parts of me I can't access?
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, is that part of you, or is it something that can be part of you if you know? So it's a strange thing,
Yeah.
self improvement, or if there even is such a thing, self realization. I don't know. What would you call it?
I feel like it the way that I think about it, and this is kind of what was going through my head when you were talking about it, is like the like getting to know yourself, whatever that means,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I like that.
It's like, you're the more you're in tune with like you, and I mean that's an interesting concept in itself, right? But I feel like it's like some of it's in the power of decision making, right? I feel like this is usually a good window into, how well you know yourself
Yeah.
when you're thinking about making a decision,
Right.
and you're whenever the choice is made, you're comfortable with that choice, and there's no like outside influence on how you're being perceived impacting how you made that decision.
Okay.
And to me that's like okay, here I'm being honest with myself. That is me
Yeah.
making this decision on how I think about things.
That's a good point.
But it's that connection, right? It's like, because in that space, if you're not in tune, I guess, basically with who you are or whatever that means,
Yeah.
right? Then you end up either, making a choice being dissatisfied either way, or
Yep.
being too focused on the thing that's not part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always say that, like, am I like being honest with yourself? Like, can you be honest with yourself? Like, how do you do that? And then like knowing yourself, right? Like knowing your tendencies. Like, yeah, this is here. You can get this opportunity, but if you get it, are you going to be okay with it? Like, how are you going to feel after the fact? And a lot of times, there's no way to know how you're going to feel after the fact. And you just have to make it work.
I feel like that's where you get to learn, because for me at least, I feel that like that process of being like in that decision making state, and you're being like, okay, am I being honest with myself? Which is a really hard thing. I mean, I still struggle with it, but it's like it's something I try to think about a lot especially when I'm trying to make choices.
Yeah.
Is like, am I being honest with myself on how I'm thinking about this?
Right.
And then
Right. Are you being inflated? Are you being like, do you want it to be a certain way? So are you kind of like favoring the ideas that are around it, or maybe the cost? You say it doesn't cost that much, because even though it might cost a little more. So you justify the lie, maybe in some way.
So then I think it's the post decision making where you get to really learn, if you take the time to think about it, right? Because the other thing you hit on, which I think is something that I think about constantly, is like, you can have an idea of how you're going to react, think, or feel about any scenario.
Yep.
But when that scenario occurs, you have no idea how you're going to react, respond, or feel.
Right. It's usually
Totally
different than, right.
Totally different. And it's like the example that comes to mind is when I lived in New York. We lived in like a shithole in Queens, and it was a terrible, disgusting building. Nice neighborhood though, and our neighbor got bed bugs, right? And we're like, oh fuck, okay. So had kind of like knew that was like a thing that happens in New York, right? So we're like, okay, whatever. If this happens, we'll deal with it. That's fine. Then we got them, and the funniest thing about that was like leading up to that, like when my wife and I would talk about it, it was like she was tripping. No man, fucking beg, like I can't, whatever. And I'm like, it'll be fine. If we get them, who cares? Whatever. There's a process. We'll get rid of it.
Yeah.
Then it happened. Total reversal. I was like totally distraught. Couldn't fucking chill out. And she just literally took control and managed everything. I was like, that was wild. Like, because in my head, it wasn't that big of a deal until we had them.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're getting bit constantly. You can't find these things.
And
And
they hide.
they could be anywhere.
Yeah. They
and
could
you're
live
gonna-
for a year
Right.
without a host.
So it was like, and I was insane. You came into my house, you take all your clothes off at the door, put them in a bag, and then I'd give you clean clothes. And it was like every day, go get them clean. And we don't have a washer or dryer, so you have to go to the laundromat,
Okay, yeah.
right? Which is in New York, also a place where you get these things.
Where you get the bed
Right?
bugs.
So, I got stuck in this like, oh my God, this is it. This is forever. I was like, I mean, we got through it, but I still never totally chilled out on it. So then we moved.
Eventually you left.
We moved to Hoboken, and I moved nothing,
You left all of it?
everything. I was like, nope, we're starting over. Leave all that shit in Queens. Went to Hoboken, and
Well, the best way to treat it, okay, is you got to leave, and you
Yeah.
got to cook the place.
Right.
Get about $1.40, $1.50, like the
Mhm.
whole everything. Leave everything there. You have to cook it. You have to go around with like a torpedo heater, and you have to hit all the areas like slowly and intentionally, long enough to kill anything that's close or that.
I know we brought the people in, man. They
did that?
They cut open the couches to do the inside, the underneath the bed. They did all that stuff. I mean, we got rid of them. They were
Right.
gone.
Yeah, but you
Yeah,
still didn't
But
like
just
it.
not in my head. And that was like a really good example of like in those scenarios where it was like, whatever, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then I behaved totally different. And I think the thing that made it the most comical was that the same thing happened to my wife, but just the total inverse. Which worked out great, because if we were both tripping out, I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, that doesn't work out too well. What happened? We got bed bugs.
Yeah, bed bugs.
Yeah, it was over.
We set the building on fire. That was-
Yeah, we gotta leave. Yeah. Yeah, no, it is interesting though. For sure. Why do we come to the decisions? We think we're one way, and then situations happen and circumstances kind of define us. And hopefully we're able to see how we've been defined in a real way, and then we could change.
Right.
But a lot of times circumstances define people, and then they deflect or they justify, and now there's a reason, and it has nothing to do with them.
Right.
And then they're the same.
Yep.
And everyone does it.
Yeah.
At different degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah,
even if you're trying to not do that, there's definitely massive blind spots
Right.
where you're not even realizing that, like, oh, you're leaning on this. But I think it's a great thing to at least try to focus on, because even if you could do a little bit of it, I think that's good.
Yeah. Trying to be honest with yourself.
Right.
It's interesting to know that there's all this science and subtlety and like words, and if like they speak in certain inflections and deflections, that dictates like the meaning. And like in America, that's not part of it at all. It's very hard to get like an honest take as like a person from ourselves, because a lot of times we say what we mean, but we say it in a way that we're not aware of, and we don't understand why we get the response we get.
Oh, yeah.
And we really don't. Like sometimes I'm like, I don't know why I got that response. And it's like, well, maybe that person's having a bad day, or maybe you're not the way you think you are. Maybe I'm
That's right.
a little more abrasive than I appear,
Yep.
or a little, less assertive or something, And it's kind of strange when when you're conscious of yourself in that sort of way. It's like, I mean, what is unique? You're supposed to be your authentic self.
Right.
Well, I mean, if you're constantly trying to like gauge who you are and how you're acting and how you're responding, I mean, how does that work? It just seems like,
Yeah, because then you're kind of removed.
yeah,
Yeah, right.
Yep. You're so removed from the action that you're just like an abstraction.
Yeah.
And I think, you know who sees through that a lot? Little kids.
Yeah.
They know.
Yeah.
They see right through
They
it.
see right through it.
They want the real.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
see this person with put on all this sunshine. And they're like, they know it's fake.
Yeah.
You know, they'll play along because they're about having a good time
Yeah.
sometimes, but they see right through it.
Yeah.
And we lose that as we get older. We're like,
Yeah,
but did you hear what I said?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's probably just because it becomes like that's just how adults interact. That there's this facade, right? Like the fake nice. This is like an acceptable way of dealing with someone, which I think is analogous to what you're saying, right? It's like, that's not how you're feeling.
Right.
You know?
Right. Right.
Why are you saying that? You know? And it's like, oh, well, you're trying to, you know, like, and this is a little bit of an extreme example, but it is something that sometimes, you know, if I'm not in a good mood, it definitely irritates me when someone's like, hey, how are you doing? And it's like, just say hello. You don't actually want to know how I'm doing. Right? Because if I start going into like, oh, well, today's a terrible day, and, you know,
Right.
this happened, it's like dad's in the hospital, and this, and they just go like, okay.
Right.
Great weather today, though, right?
Great.
You know, it's a beautiful day, and it's like,
Yeah.
like, no, you don't have to do that. Like,
I had a teacher come in and say that once. She goes, "Can I ask everybody something?" And she said that. She's like, when someone says like, "Hey, how you doing?" Like, you don't like want someone's story. It's just like a polite thing to say. And we're like, yeah. And then that happens, right? And then it's like, well, why would you say something if you don't mean it?
Right.
But you're not really being conscious of like your words and what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I think, well, as getting older, it's just like, you got to give everyone the benefit of the doubt always. Because not that you can, like I can't, you know.
You're just trying to reduce friction, right?
Yes.
I think it's all about just like, hey, let's just minimize the friction and just get whatever we need done, and, you know, and then we can both go our separate ways. So
it's like,
hey, how you doing? Great, good, okay, all right, good, great.
So you get to the point of the day, and you're just like,
move on.
Yeah. And what you want to say to them it's like, I hate you and the sound of your voice. Whatever interaction needs to happen to get me away from that,
let's take care of that.
Let's do that. And I'll be cordial.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to be condescending and a little abrasive.
Right.
And I'm not going to understand why you don't understand anything.
But also to the extent that person's willing to tolerate it.
Yes.
Right. It'll continue.
Absolutely.
Right. But everyone has a different threshold.
Yeah.
Like some people will play that game where it's like an incredibly disrespectful exchange in the most polite way. And it's because both these people don't enjoy or want to avoid confrontation. So they're like, but they also like want to, you know, posture their position or whatever. And then they'll play this stupid game.
Yeah.
It's like
with all due respect.
Yeah.
As long as you
it's like with all due respect, you're an asshole. Yeah. Right. So it's definitely, you know, and this is something that sees like in banking, and see this is like the method of people exchanging information, you know, like,
well, because you have to be professional, but you still have like these emotions from your childhood you don't know how to deal with because you're, you know,
everyone does.
Yeah. You gotta act way out of bounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
See, what I like to do is I like to take it past words. You know what I mean? Like someone will be talking.
You just get up
and just stand up. Yeah, that's a good. And now, you know what I mean? The dynamic, it's a little different.
Yeah.
You know, I'm listening. Yeah. You know, or you do stuff that like makes people wonder like what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like you're 4 years old. You can get away with this if you're 4.
Yeah. Right.
But as an adult, if you're like in a business meeting and you stand up, but keep talking, you know, and keep the eye contact, and they'll come around.
Or they'll just flat out ignore it.
They'll ignore it. Yeah.
They'll ignore
it. Yeah.
Like, here's a fun example. So like true. I got tattoos, right? And like, and they're not generally, you know, something that's like accepted within banking. So I've hid them for almost my entire career. Then last year when I changed jobs, I was like, it's a brand new job. I still don't want to do banking. I'm trying to do this stuff on the side. So I was like, I don't really care if I'm going to do something that's going to have create a headwind for my career progression, because if they don't want to make me, a boss because I have tattoos, I don't care anymore. Because hopefully I'm not going to be in it. So they did a team event.
Mhm.
We did pickleball. Right? So now I've known some of these people for years. One of the guys I've known for a decade.
Mhm.
Right? And so we show up to the pickleball place. It's, summer day.
Yeah.
And I'm in shorts and a tank top.
And they've never seen you outside of the office.
Never. And not only did no one say anything, I have never had that much eye contact in a conversation ever. It was like they just were like staring at my eyes so that like they wouldn't catch me looking, and no one said anything. I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive. Like I thought someone would, comment,
Yeah. Something. Say something.
Yeah. But
you know what it is too? Like, I don't think I'm a scary person. I don't think I am.
Yeah.
I think I'm like, anyone could come up to me. People do all the time. I'm like, do I look this friendly? Because I'm not. I'm always, but then like sometimes I'll get the total opposite. And it'll be like that. Or like people won't know like if there's like a boundary they shouldn't like cross. And then that's why like as I get older, the more I feel that, it's like, fuck, now I got to do something. Now I have to. Because why would I, you know what I mean? I can't limit myself. I don't know. And this person is just a person, you know? I'm sure they probably would be happy to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? No one's going to be like, I saw you got some tattoos. And you're going to be like, you want to fucking die? You'd be like, I thought you would, I knew I shouldn't have said that. Yeah, I should have kept my mouth shut.
My eyes are up here.
Yeah, right.
Undressing me like that. What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but part of that also is like, having to do with like, how much do you care what someone thinks about you?
Well, that's a weird thing.
That's a weird thing.
Because what about like, I feel like obviously you shouldn't care what anybody thinks about you. I don't think you should. I think you should care about what you think about yourself.
As a priority.
As a priority.
Yeah.
Obviously you want to treat people well, but you can't control what people think or how they perceive.
That's right.
But if people do perceive something incorrectly and you could correct it and they can see it better, especially in like family dynamics,
I think
then it's worth getting into it.
Right. I think it depends in the context, right? Because it's like, I totally agree. Like I can't really remember a time that I cared about what someone thought about me, but I'm very conscious of like the relationship I'm trying to build with my kids.
Yeah.
Like I do care very much how they view me.
Yes.
And it's a weird thing though, right? Because it's like we're different people. There's a very real possibility they might not like me.
Oh yeah.
But
that's okay. I get that sometimes.
Right?
Yeah. That's okay.
That's okay.
Because most things don't like what dictates their autonomy.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And that's kind of your job.
Yeah.
I mean, to some degree.
Right.
It is
boundaries and right.
Yeah, like it's important that but there's a lot of misunderstanding, is there? Amongst like,
oh yeah,
in social events, like even this is what I think a lot now, or even before, like, often you like mishear something and you misheard it. So you ask and then like, oh, wow, I thought like you said something totally different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, that's what you realize you misheard. You know how many things you mishear that you don't realize you mishear, that you just take for face value 100% wrong.
Yeah. Right.
Like, and you don't really realize that until you're in a relationship, and then you have to go back and forth. And that's,
yeah, man. So when I first got married, this was a huge learning curve, because my wife, she grew up in France.
Mm-hmm.
She speaks English, but not her first language. And as her English got better, that miscommunication actually increased because she got to a level of fluency where I could understand her perfectly well. She could understand me.
Yeah.
But there was a massive gap in actually like
The meaning.
Because of the way that she was phrasing things. She was putting together sentences in English that made sense. But when it actually didn't start getting better until I started learning French, and then I started to like reverse translate.
Okay.
And it's like, oh, yes, what you're saying is correct on a verbatim basis.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is this other thing.
Yeah.
And that's a weird kind of like a thing to try to pick up on. And I think, at least in our case, I feel like the language barrier was a benefit for that.
Yeah.
Because it was like the focus went back to the language, and then we were able to identify the bridges in miscommunication.
Yeah. The default is we don't understand each other and then come to an understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you get older in marriage, you want the default to be you understand everything I mean without me having to even say it twice. And that's that could be a realistic thing, but it's hard to make it an expectation, but when it becomes the way life is, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it happens, but at least in my experience, I feel like it happens in waves though, right? Because like over time, you're both evolving.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So like that's going to have an impact on the communication.
Yeah, the dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think about if that's how it is with sound, right? You hear it. I call this the VAR. What's the VAR theory or something? So VAR is like, in soccer, they didn't until recently have like video review.
Okay.
It was just whatever the ref, however much money he was getting paid, he
Good.
just made calls
Done.
according to that.
Yep.
At least in Italy. All right. So later they introduced the VAR, right? So you watch a game and everyone's emotionally charged. Hey, it's a foul, it was as clear as day, right? And then they go back to it's not the VAR, but it's like whoever's camera shots most readily available to broadcast, that's what you see.
Okay.
And like clear as day, right? You see the ball, guy missed the ball, it deflects, it hits off the guy, and he takes him out, right? There's no contemplation. You saw it with your eyes, okay? It's happened, right? And then they go to the VAR, and there's another camera guy, right? And the ball bounced, the guy slid, the other guy jumped over him, didn't get touched at all, like maintained possession. And it's like a very similar sequence of events, but from one angle where the ball appears to be deflecting, it's not. It's just a movement of body. And then you see that they didn't touch each other at all. Whereas in the other angle, you saw this guy get like ransacked. And like, oh, wow, like that didn't happen for sure. Like 100%. Like I saw it. So like you are initially the part that I think is strange. It's like you're a person that knows like an injustice took place without a doubt. And then because something else changed, you saw something that was more true, I guess, or the more real. You decided completely against it. And just like that, in the flip, you go from being one way to another. And if you get away from the VAR and just think about in daily life, if you missaw as much as you mishear,
yeah.
I mean, how much of the world are you actually perceiving as objective? And then it's like, is there such a thing?
Yeah.
That's,
yeah.
It's early for this conversation. I know this is like a late night conversation, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's so much there because it's like one thing, right, is that the ability to then change views based on new information is also a key component of this, because there are people that even with new information will refuse to change their view.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
So you think about that, extrapolate that into everyday life, and it's the same thing, right? It's like it adds another layer of complexity to like you're basically living in your reality,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
I think so. Yeah. I
It's
mean,
like what you're taking in, what you're choosing to or not to,
what you're capable
what
of.
you're capable of, and whether or not, what your purpose is, right? Are you trying to figure all this stuff out, or you just want it to be what you want it to be?
In general, or are you asking me?
Right? No, just I mean like from the perspective of like the daily life of anybody as they go through it, right? Because then there's a selective input of selective taking of information, and then deciding that doesn't fit what I want to do, and then they maintain view. But this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, though, is like that has a lot to do with just your internal focus on like what you're trying to do or achieve, right? Are you trying to continuously learn more about yourself and potentially make adjustments to be the person that you want to be, or make changes to the person that you are that maybe you think could be better?
Yeah.
Or are you someone that's just like no desire to do any of these things?
Yeah. I don't know. I think it kind of reminds me of something I was talking about with Colin. And I think like fundamentally what everyone kind of wants is to feel good, right? I mean, that's a very rudimentary, basic, non-abstract or supposedly non-abstract thing. And then it's like, you might think you feel good, and then you go through something that's either terrible or the opposite, and then you're like, wow, I've never felt this good before. Like I didn't know this level of feeling was even possible,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then it's like that becomes like maybe for some people like, oh, I wish I could get back there, or I can maintain that level, or just like a consistent feeling of like health. I want to be I want to feel healthy. I want to feel productive, right? I want to feel seen. I want to feel valued. There's like all these things that everybody actually wants. And it's like, how do you get it? And it's like, well, you want to be healthy, you got to do things that make you healthy. If you want to be seen, you got to talk in nice ways and be respectful to people. And you got to be assertive too. You got to be yourself. You got to be a person if you want to be seen. If you want to be heard, you also have to hear. Right? Eventually people are just going to leave you alone. And it's such a subtle dance. And it's such a weird thing that we have such a consciousness to abstract out so many layers of ourselves, to be talking about it in such these ways. And like our kids, like they're like all kids nowadays, they're so smart. And there's like all these stigmas around growing up, sexuality, mental health. And it's like, oh, how do you identify? I'm like, look, when someone says like, how do you identify? It's like, do you have probable cause? What are you talking about? How do you identify? Like, if you ask me, like, the real wokeness is understanding that you don't want to identify as anything, because anything you identify is a box. It's a limit. And you're putting yourself in a box that has to adhere to certain parameters. Like, I don't identify as anything if I can. And I'm not going to go out of my way to identify as something. Why would I do that? No?
Yeah. Well, that brings up a pretty interesting point, though, right? Because I feel like this concept of like applying a label to anything, it creates the box. And the box creates an environment that is like understandable or predictable. And that's where the comfort is. when
Ooh.
when you
Yep.
when you don't fit in anything in particular, there's a lot of unknown components to it, right?
Yep.
So
That's
then
good.
it's like, oh, well, how can I be this and that?
Right.
It's like, well, you can be if you choose to be neither of them at any given point, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think the thought that went through my head is like the basic of like who you are on a daily basis, like husband, father, friend, banker, business owner, fitness, all like,
Yep.
and through every, passing, hour, whatever in the day, it's like I'm not the same role in every single one of those things.
Right.
So it's like I'm all of the things, or
Yeah.
at any given time I'm none of them.
Right. That's true. Yeah. And to not claim anyone is
Yeah.
to be able to have all of them.
When I feel like that's kind of going back to what I was saying
Good
earlier
point.
about like the concept of caring about what people think about you, because I think that's part of it. Is that like people generally, especially when they first meet you, right? They're trying to pin you. Who are you, right? They're trying to put you in a spot.
Do they? They do that, right? Do people do that? Because I feel like when I meet people, I don't give a shit. Like what I want to do is like see if I can get them to be silly.
That's cool. Yeah.
Like at least now I realize that, and until I can do that, I'm just quiet. Or historically, I've noticed that about myself.
Mm.
But so most people, yeah, they are trying to get to know you. Why do you think that is?
My thought on that is it has a lot to do with potentially them not being comfortable on the person that they are. So they're trying to like create a relative benchmark. How do I compare to this person? Like, who are you? Where do you fit? Right?
Yeah.
Like a thing that popped in my head was like when I first started working in banking and I moved to New York,
Mm-hmm.
it was unbelievable. Like every time we would go out to like, drinks or whatever the after work event was, and you'd be in an environment that had a bunch of finance people from all over, because it's like there's pockets of where all the finance companies sit within Midtown and Lower Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's spots that like they all go to.
Yeah.
Right. So you go in, you're whatever, having drinks, talking to people, and without fail, like every conversation was, hey, how you doing? I'm so and so. Where do you work? Or where'd you go to school? It's like, I drive a cab. I never went to school. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm out here having drinks, man. Like, what is that?
Right. What do you do?
What do I do? I mean, it was like, I think that was a.
Well, that's like the elevator speech, right? Everyone expects you to kind of have this elevator speech.
Yeah.
But
For what though?
right, for what?
What are you doing? Right. And I think that's like that concept. There's a place for that.
Yeah. It kind of
Right.
helps break the ice.
Breaks the ice, or if you're trying to position yourself for something.
Right.
Right. So like you want to be able to give that, elevator pitch to position yourself for the thing you're trying to get or the perception you're trying to establish. But like there's like a time and a place for that,
Absolutely.
So it's like, you're in this environment. It's like, no, like when I meet someone, I just want to have a conversation with them, see what I like to try to see if there's something interesting. Like I like to try to find more people that are not like me.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, because I know what my life has been like. I don't, it's nice to share a story with someone that has had a similar experience. But
Right.
I way more enjoy having a conversation with someone that has like a totally different life.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, how's that work? What are you doing there? And
Yeah. You get a juxtaposition.
Yeah.
You get contrast. It brings out a lot of things.
And, selfishly, for me, I find it helpful in trying to solidify my understanding and view of myself. Right? Because you only had the experiences that you've had.
Absolutely.
Right?
How else?
how else, right? So then it's like you listen to someone else's experience, and again, it's this weird thing where it's like, in some scenarios, you might try to imagine how you could have or would have, in those situations, which you're probably totally wrong anyway when you're trying to think through it, right?
Right. I
But
mean,
I think the thought exercise in itself
yeah.
is beneficial to some extent, because you're theoretically putting yourself somewhere that you've never been.
Right. And it feels real.
Yeah. You just try to like work like, oh, how was that?
Well, it's nice to hear other people say things that you can relate to, because then you feel like you're okay, or like your choice was valid. And then it's also nice to hear things that are the complete opposite of what you would do,
Yeah.
because then it's like, oh, that's not bad either in a lot of cases, right? And that makes it funny when it's like the complete opposite for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, in some people, like when you laugh because it's the complete opposite, they'll get like, oh, are you making fun of me or like that? I'm like, no, it's
just
it's ironic.
it's yeah, right.
You know,
That
to
like,
me,
like this thing could have been so serious for me, and for you it was nothing. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
right? Like, or like it, and it's like there's such a subtlety in how all that gets conveyed,
Yeah.
and like that's why, like, if you're in a place like which I've been in my life where like I don't know, and I don't know how I'm supposed to feel or how I'm supposed to take things, like growing up, you just give people the benefit of the doubt. It's not me. I don't care. Oh, well, they were trying to say this about you. So what?
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
it should only bother me if I'm that way, or
And you don't like it.
and I don't like it. Yeah.
But like if they tell you something about yourself that they don't like,
Right.
that you do or you don't care,
Right.
also don't care.
Right.
Right.
Also, don't care.
Right.
Yeah. It's the
It's
the
like,
easiest way.
I'm not you. That's fine. Like
Right.
there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I'm not better or worse, and neither
Right.
are you.
Exactly.
But like that's like, again, I think the tattoos are always a funny example, because there's some people that when they see them, they're like, oh, I could never do that. I was like, well, then you shouldn't.
Right.
Right. Like, oh, you don't like them. Well, then you shouldn't get any. That's fine. But there was something that just popped in my head when you were going through that I lost. It'll
Well,
come back.
when people tell me, well, when I see, I tend to do that too. I think I'm like, because like you says, we can only really understand ourselves. And sometimes, you laugh about things that happen when you're a little, or like just like random things that pop up that you have access to that you don't. And I think like, I tend to be like a provocateur. Looking back. And I think it's like, not out of nowhere, right? Like I don't like to do it like all the time. Like I'm not like trying to make a big scene and like get people pissed off like
Yeah.
that. But I want to prod the depths. Who's in there?
You want to like see the response?
Yeah, like I'm interested to know like how people will respond. Like I like to throw out wild card statements just to see like how people respond. Like
Yeah.
you
Right.
know,
Yeah,
people
right.
be like, like if someone else, like they'll say something that's like against anything, well, I'll just be 100% for it and see if it like turns them off or if they change or like whatever.
Right.
And then I'll be like, hey, I'm just fucking around.
Yeah.
I just am putting this face on. Like
Yeah.
I don't really believe in anything, right? I don't really care that much about anything.
Yeah. How does that usually go though?
Huh?
I feel like there's some people that in and of itself might cause a level of friction.
So usually I only do it when I know it's like a safe sort
Okay.
of scenario. Like
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
what I mean. Like I'm not just doing it to like random strangers,
Yeah.
but I like to, if I can,
Yeah.
sometimes.
I mean, I could definitely see how that would be entertaining for sure.
I mean, if we go in public and you start doing that to everybody you see,
Yeah.
just see if you can provoke them. That's a different
it's
story.
a different story. That could end poorly.
Yeah, but I think I think it's like once you let your guard down and you're like yourself, like how do you really feel? And I feel like fundamentally, people feel like I feel like they really don't care.
Hmm.
And like if you could let it go, it's funny, right?
Yeah.
It's like, do you ever watch any comedy?
Yeah.
You ever hear of there's what's this guy's name? I want to say Jordan Jensen, but she's a female comic. You know my buddy Tony. He looks just like Tony. Why can't I think of his name? I can't think of this guy's name.
I don't know.
Anyways, he's a really good comic. And I think provoking people for the sake of getting them out of themselves makes them reflect upon themselves. And I don't know where I was going with this either.
Is it Anthony Jeselnik?
Oh, Anthony Jeselnik is good. He's like a prime example of that.
Yeah. He like just makes these just incredibly polarizing statements.
Yes. Which are funny.
Which it's funny. And the thing is that like you don't know if he's serious or not. If it doesn't matter.
Right.
Right?
Right.
He just says it and then you get the response from the crowd and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always liked that, you know?
Yeah.
And you see where people are hung up, because really when it comes down to, it's like, if you're in a good mood or whatever, you don't care. And if you're tense or you're not, then you do. And if I'm in a place where I could get people out of that, let's have a good time.
Awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
Why? But sometimes I can't get out of that. I mean,
Yeah. Definitely easier said than done.
yeah.
I remember what I was going to say. When you were talking about the shared experiences and then the feeling. So
Yeah.
for the past few years, I've been doing group therapy for like men's group therapy. So it's
Okay.
like I'm about, most of the guys are older than me. And one thing that's been really interesting from a learning experience is that like having a feel for having a shared experience from someone is one thing. But what I've learned over time is that like it's not actually the experience that's the shared component. It's the resulting, feeling that came from that.
Yes.
So it's like I may not have been in the same position as you, but I can recognize like that level of fear or that level of sadness
Yeah.
or happiness for that matter. And that's been a really cool way to learn about how to connect with people that are like totally different than you.
Yes.
Because it's like, oh, this person had a totally different life. Like there's no way that like we're going to find a connection. And it's like, as you start talking through these things, you go, oh no, like I can relate to that feeling. Like
Right.
I don't know that experience, but like, oh no, I've definitely been that afraid before. I can
Yeah.
relate to that.
Yeah. You have empathy,
Yeah.
and then you can meet each other on that level.
Yeah.
That connect. I wonder that too, like in a more intimate relationship, like you have the same experience. It's not a bad experience superficially, but you feel like shit. You know what I mean? Or like you have this gut and it's like, why do I keep, like, how do I conduct myself in a way that allows me to like come out of this in a good feeling way? Like I have to say what I have to say and then I feel like shit, or like it just, there's like friction, right?
Mm.
And I think I remember the guy's name is Mark Norman.
Mark Norman.
Yeah, he's such a
comedy.
yeah, he's good. And he's always like he's like I'm gay and I'm Kevin Hart, and he just like says shit just to say it.
Yeah.
And that sort of stuff is like good. And I think like it's important to always cultivate that part of your self. Like everybody has that silly self, the part that like I don't know what we were talking about. This is gonna just be a blindsided thing. I was over with a bunch of dudes and we were just like talking shit, just lying to each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're like, I was like, oh, like, like if you ever like talking about using condoms, and they're like, oh, I've never, like they don't use condoms. Who uses condoms? Like no one's ever used a condom. And then it's like, well, how do you keep from having babies? I was like, I don't know. They're like, oh, I use the traditional method. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I've never used the traditional method, and I never use condoms. So like, what do you do? I'm like, I just pray, just leave it in and pray. And they're like, what are you talking about? It's just, it's just a blatant lie, you know, and they know it's a lie. I'd have at least, I would have at least 3 children if that were the case. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, like, you know, it's fun. Like, you got to have some humility, right?
Yeah.
Like, you learn, it's weird because you learn like these different, like, they seem like revelations at like different points of your life.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, oh, it's like this way, and it's this way, and it's this way. And it's like that box. And as long as like you can keep it like how you said, like, no, you can realize the boxes are there, and then not identifying with any of them allows you to encompass all of them. And you gotta, it's good to fuck around.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Because at the end of the day, we're all gonna die.
Yes.
You're gonna fucking die. So
yeah, maybe I'm dead already.
Could be.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Only I do.
Right?
Supposedly.
I mean,
at least thus far.
We could literally be in the Matrix right now and not know it. But that has been a grounding thought for me for quite a while now. I try to think about that all the time, and I feel like that's something that's helpful.
Yeah.
In those situations, is like, you know, how serious is this?
But what does that mean to a person that doesn't know they're alive?
I think the way that I frame it is that, like, it's going to end. Whatever this is going to end.
Yeah. Yeah. As you get older, it's easier to like put that into some perspective. I feel like when I was little, like, yeah, I knew what that meant abstractly, and you will only know what it means abstractly, right? Until you die.
How else would you know? I think for me, this thought got very real when I was like 16.
Okay.
Do you remember Eric Rico Hermoso?
Maybe.
We skated with him.
Okay.
And he drowned at a family party when he was like 15 or 16.
I don't remember that specifically.
Yeah, okay. Can't remember where he lived, but he was like one of the kids we'd skate with that we'd pick up on the train on the way to the city.
Okay.
Super nice kid. That for me was like, oh shit. And that's one of those moments that absolutely changed the trajectory for the next iteration of whatever my life cycle was.
You empathize with that. You saw that potentiality.
I was like,
in a real way.
I was like, oh, he's my age, and his shit just ended. You know, and I think about like it had a significant impact on my life choices for the next 6-8 years.
Yeah.
How I thought about things, and then it's evolved since then. But that was a pivot point where I was like, at that point is when I decided, I was like, okay, I don't want to live past 30. I was like, so I'm going to do all the things that I want to do, and hopefully something will kill me before I get to 30. You know, because it was like, because if thinking about the juxtaposition is that, like, you know, my dad is just a machine for work, and he's been that way my whole life, and he's still like that. He works. I mean, he's getting better now, but throughout my childhood, like, he worked all the time. I hardly saw him during the week, and then on the weekends, it was like all he did was work around the house.
Yep.
And so I look at that, and then I look at my friend dying, and I go, if that's where I'm going, well then fuck that.
Right.
I'd rather just max out experience and fun, and then when all the responsibilities start, I'll check out. You know? It's a very extreme, you know.
Yeah. Well, no, because it makes sense. You're a young person, and you can empathize with how much lack of silliness and funness there is in that.
Right.
And you realize, like, well, that's not what it's about.
Right.
In your opinion.
Yep. Right.
I think a lot of dudes are like that. I was like that.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing. I didn't think there was a chance in hell I would live past 30. Don't ask me why. I mean, it's not because like I was a reckless person or something, or I wasn't or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I was definitely like, I was all in on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it evolved, and like it's evolved over time, but you know, the thought still remains.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like people get hit with certain things. Like, I mean, I want to say like I didn't know I was alive really in like a way that I would consider a real way until I was like 23.
What do you mean by that? That's a really interesting statement.
Well, like at 23 around there, I had an experience that I would say I didn't feel guilty about dying.
Ah,
And I always had a feel.
you did mushrooms.
No, that wasn't this experience.
Okay.
This was actually a sober experience. But yeah, mushrooms will probably do that. Like it was yeah, because you feel a lot of peace, right?
A lot of peace.
What that means is you have a deep feeling of peace, and when you have a deep feeling of peace, you realize it's kind of okay to die because you feel totally fine.
Yeah.
And that's how you want to feel when you die. And when you experience a really deep level of peace, you probably feel like it's okay to die. And you might also serendipitously or simultaneously feel like you might be dying, or you might actually be dying soon, because that's when you get those deep feelings of peace, hopefully. And that's when I had that. And I used to I always thought like there was like such a bad thing, like, oh, it's a bad thing. And I would feel guilty. Like I just guilty, not to anything, but just that's how I would express my emotion towards it. I would feel guilty about the idea of dying. And then when I had this peace in my day, in my wokeness, I realized that it was okay to die. And everything is the way it's supposed to be. And there's no such thing as this supposed to be. And it's all ideas.
Yeah.
And if it's not ideas, it's feelings. And I like to feel good. And it's like just goes on a tangent forever, right? And hopefully you can live long.
Yeah. I mean, my thought around it is like, it's going to happen. I have no control over it.
Yeah. Oh,
whether or not I'm okay with it is irrelevant.
It is totally irrelevant.
It's just it's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen. So then,
or how it's going to happen.
So then, is that knowing that, does that change my perspective now?
And it did in that situation.
And that did, and it has over time for sure. And then over the past handful of years, the other thing that I started doing, especially when trying to make like what I would think of as like major life decisions, is trying to think about myself as an old man and trying to imagine how I would reflect back on this decision.
Yeah.
Like how would that guy think about this? And those two things I think have helped in terms of like trying to frame significance.
Okay.
Which I feel like is helpful in when you're making a decision, because in any given moment, right, like something can feel like the most important thing at the time, and in reality, like it's probably not as important as
that's like when you're smoking weed, and it's like, should I eat the orange
or get a cookie?
Yeah. What?
I don't know.
Yeah, and then
fuck you eat both.
It seems very significant because is a cookie going to crush your blood sugar?
Yeah.
Are you going to wake up in the middle of the night dizzy because you have tinnitus and vertigo and you're...
I don't have those thoughts.
Oh, okay.
I worry about, stomach ache. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How can you tell if something's a significant decision? Like, what do you try to gauge? How you should conduct yourself during the situation, or the choice that you should make? Like, what are you trying to frame the choice?
And this goes...
I'm more worried about how I act than what I do. Are those different?
Are those different?
I don't know. Keep going, though. So the choice, you're wondering, when I look back, well, I think, okay, yes, I made the right decision. How will I feel about this decision?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back into like what we talked about earlier, right? In terms of like being honest with yourself,
Yeah.
right? And when you're in the moment of something, right, you have a lot of emotions,
Yes.
right?
Typically.
And this definitely influence how you think about things.
100%.
So then,
And if you're looking at them right, whatever that means.
Right. Because again, it could skew how you're thinking about something.
Yep.
So then, trying to incorporate those two things into the thought process tries to soften the immediacy of the emotions, and then try to filter out, because ultimately, like, your decisions will have an emotional impact on you in the immediate event.
Mm-hmm.
And then, in theory, right, these will cascade over time because your decision is going to have an impact on the path or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like trying to filter it down into what is an in the moment temporary, influence from the unknown,
Mm-hmm.
to like, okay, how's this going to impact you? And then circling back to like, am I being honest with myself on what I'm trying to accomplish?
Right.
And who I am and why I'm doing that.
Right.
Like,
so if you could come up with kind of an abstract perspective down the line in the future, you can say to yourself, okay, when I'm there, will I feel good or will I feel bad? And I imagine when you put yourself there, it's always in a place of contentment, right? You're not putting yourself like in the future in a place of like great distress and things like that. Like, so does it help you?
It's more about like
calm down. It's kind of, does it bring you down like a little bit in high emotional decisions?
It's not that I'm projecting out in a state of contentment. It's projecting myself out in the tandem of like, you're gonna die. Now I am like,
yeah,
almost dead.
Okay.
Not
right.
only am I almost dead, I have little capacity to do anything.
I got you.
So it's like, I can't do most things that I can do now in the future.
Right.
So
Right.
that guy, how is he going to think about this guy now that theoretically has the capacity
To do more.
to do more things?
Oh, yes. That's interesting for sure.
Because to your
That
point,
sounds inspiring. I mean, it seems like you should always say, do it. Like, take on more.
it has absolutely had that influence on me, for sure, in taking a little bit more risks and getting more committed into the things that I want to be doing.
And if you can be honest with yourself, you do that in directions of things you want to spend your time doing, right?
Right. Yeah. And that whole kind of like thought cycle feeds itself in trying to understand, like, what is it that you want to be doing? What do you want to get out of here when you're there?
Right.
What are the things that you're going to have regretted that you didn't do? What are the things that you're going to, you're happy that you did do,
Right.
And that whole kind of thought process is actually what was the kickoff into like going into like group therapy and stuff, and trying to like figure out how I think about things. Because when you're trying to reflect on like, what do I want?
Yeah.
Right. And what's the point?
Right.
Right. And the thing that came back around to me was like, well, when I picture myself as an old man that's probably incapable of moving because I've destroyed my body.
Yep.
Right. I'm going to want to be spending time with people that I care about.
Right.
I'm going to be watching them have a good time and laughing and sharing stories and stuff. So what's important is building the relationships. And then, so that helped me with trying to, my decision process, and like, is this helping me or hurting me in developing and building these relationships?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the sequence of how I've tried to exit banking. Because in the beginning of my banking career, up until not too long ago, I mean, I worked 70, 80-hour weeks, weekends,
Yeah.
and then we had kids, and like I saw them on the weekends, and a lot of times I'd be working anyway,
Right.
and then and it was always for like, oh, well, I got to make the money,
Right. Well,
and
you do.
yeah, you do.
You do.
But this is where it starts to come in, is that like there was never enough.
No.
It's like always wanted to get more money. It's like, well, what do you want the more money for?
Right.
I was like, well, I want more money so I could have more time. But right now I'm trading my time for the money.
Right.
And I'm going to be trading away the time in the moment that I'm the most capable of building a relationship with my kids.
Yeah.
For the time that they're going to be out building relationships with their family, and then I'll have the time. So it's like, okay, is there another way that I could do this?
Yeah. And now
I'm trying,
No, it's what you're saying is really true. It's really important too.
Yeah.
Because I think our generation is probably one of the last, hopefully, not everyone in our generation, but a lot of them, they didn't have relationships like that with their father necessarily. Some kids did, right? Most kids didn't. Like their dad and their mom are not like necessarily their friend. Probably their mom more so than their father, because they probably spent more time with them. But yeah, you're right. Right. Like when you have the time, it'll be gone.
Yep.
And if you don't take the time, you're never going to have enough money, and you're never going to have enough time.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah. However, in theory, money can be replaced.
In theory, money can be replaced. Yeah. Yeah. And time is gone.
That's it.
It's limited.
And I mean, if you get super philosophical, the only time that exists is this moment.
Yep. There's not much outside of here.
That's it.
Not right now.
Right?
Not in particle form. Maybe in wave form. Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah.
So your transition out of banking, you started, or you didn't start. What did you do? You got...
So at first I tried to partner with someone to buy an accounting firm. Felt like I had a couple of theories, but didn't work out because that guy decided he didn't, I don't know, want to be an accountant, and I kind of needed him to be the accountant.
Yeah.
Because I'm not. So that one failed. And then so I was like, all right, well, let me try to find a business that I could buy, do by myself, a business that I understand, like it's not super complicated, that I can learn, and has the potential to get me to the cash flow number that I need to support my family. That way I'm no longer dependent on my banking income. Then I can rely on the income from the business and then my real estate, so that I know that like I don't need them.
Yeah.
And then that in theory giving me autonomy of my time. Not that I'm not going to be busy.
Right.
But that, if I want to cut out and go, to my son's gymnastics things or come here, right?
Thank you.
I can just do it.
Yep.
So I bought 2 dog businesses. They both do daycare, boarding, training, and grooming, and then one of them has a grooming school. So like if you want to learn to become a groomer, you can come. It's a 500-hour course, certified by the Illinois Board of Higher Education. Come out and be like a...
So if you want to be a dog groomer, you can get people certified.
Yeah, and Illinois, you don't need a certification, which is an interesting dynamic in the grooming market, because anyone can be a groomer.
Well, it's like that with even construction for a lot of components.
So you have an incredible range of skill sets. And for people that are looking to hire groomers, it is somewhat challenging to really know if they're good or not.
That's where the certificate...
So the school comes in, our instructor spends 500 hours or more with them. And then if
500 hours?
500 hours.
I thought you were... Okay, that's a good number. I
Yeah.
mean, you're going to learn some shit in
You're
500
gonna
hours.
learn it, right? And then there's an exam. There's exams, and both written and with, grooming dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get the certification, assuming they pass, and it sets like a minimum standard. So then, we have a bunch of grooming salons in the area that are looking for groomers, and they know that like if they're coming out of our school, they know that they have a minimum skill set that is above what they need, unless they're like a show grooming.
Right.
Um,
So basically, you're training your competition.
yeah,
But that means anyone that comes to your facilities, they're basically getting well-trained employees. I mean, they're getting well-trained
Yeah.
technicians to work on their dog and care for their dog. They're people that have been gone through a 500-hour course.
Yeah.
And most people's pets are their family, and they want them treated well, and they want to know that they're okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually keeps a lot of people from doing things nowadays, their pets.
Yeah.
If you could take them somewhere and they say, hey, I have a 500-hour course and it's a nice place and this is kind of how their time's going to be spent. And that's like seemingly enjoyable and not traumatic. It gives people freedom.
Yep.
I mean, I know a lot of people that don't do stuff because they're pets.
Yeah.
They can't.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that I was drawn to with it was that like it offers what I would think are like the foundational services that every dog owner needs, right? It's like training, get your dog trained, daycare, socialization for dogs is super important for their behavior, not only like with other dogs, but with people. Boarding. So if you go away, there's a safe place to keep your dog in an environment that they know, with people that they know, and with other dogs that they're going to be able to play with. And then grooming. This is a necessary component of taking care of your overall health of your dog, because during the grooming process is really where you can catch potential issues with your dog early. Because the groomers are, part of the training is understanding a lot of the signs for things that might go, sicknesses or something like that. So they go over the dog and go, hey, look, there's a lump here, like you should get that checked out, or your dog has a rash or something like that.
Yeah.
Which surprisingly, like a lot of people don't pay that close attention, right? Like some of the dogs that supposed to be brushed every day, and like not everyone does that. So by not doing that, like you're not paying attention to what's happening, and like they could be developing something and be unaware of it. So you bring them in, the groomers do it. So that's why I thought it was cool, because it's like if you could build a relationship with your customer, it's like it's like a resource for the community and kind of a safe place to bring your furry family member,
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So you got 2 of those going.
Yeah.
And then eventually you're going to get out of banking.
I would like to, but they're not making money, so they need to make money before I can leave. I think they can. They were making money, and then they were kind of like starting to taper off. And I think what I've learned so far is that I think I overestimated my assessment of what was driving the softness in the revenue.
Okay.
So, I implemented these new software systems to get better data out of the businesses, and now I'm trying to like have the data tell me what's going on.
Okay.
Because before everything was ran on like a Square. There's no data system for tracking like the who's coming and how frequently and so on. And so,
well, that's a huge thing. It's like the dentist. Your dog they have to go in.
They gotta go.
They gotta get brushed. They gotta get taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
They need to be checked out. They need to be groomed for sure. And I remember we would take my dog, and they would come back and they'd be like smelling good. Their hair and their face wouldn't be like literally in their mouth and throat,
Yep.
because we used to have this little Yorkie, and like there's a better quality for sure. For a lot of dogs, they need to be maintained in a way.
Yeah.
Just like you brush your teeth and you clean, but you go to the dentist because every 6 months or 3 months or what have you, you got to have someone really give it the attention and
Yeah.
the consideration that
Right.
that you can't.
Right. Actually, like take a look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. The boarding is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, streamlining it, I'm sure software does great things, you know.
So, it gives you a better insight, right? Because like otherwise you're like, oh yeah, no, they come a lot. How often do they come? I don't know. They come a lot. It's like, okay, but because I'm trying to like figure out pricing model and structure and
Yep.
and ways that I can reward the people that come the most and use the most services, because those are the people that are really taking advantage of the
Yeah.
benefit of the business. So it's like I'd like those people to have the most benefits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this gives me a window into like, okay, well, I know like these people, they did the training, they still use us for daycare, they use us for boarding, and we groom them. So like, let's make sure that
Yeah.
they get taken care of well.
Right. They're getting probably best prices.
Get best prices, get, coupons and, give away things. And, so trying to come up with all that stuff, but it starts with the data. I need to see
Yeah. What's where.
what's where.
And then you can incentivize different systems.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. There's a dog grooming place actually that opened up down the street from this place that we operate. And it's like a great place. Like they popped up. They seem to be doing good. They got a little front end. They're selling stuff. It's a small place. But it's like one of those things. It's like local. You know what I mean? Like no one's like, you probably have like a certain radius.
Yeah.
Right. And besides that, people are going to go to their next radius. It's not like
yeah, you're not going to drive an hour for your dog, because it takes a while, right? So like to go through like a dog that doesn't have short hair, I mean, a groom could be 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
So you're going to drive an hour.
Right.
And then it's going to be 3 hours. And then what, are you going to stay there? You're going to leave and then go back?
Right.
It's like, no, it's going to be in the neighborhood.
Yeah, it's got it. You drop them off, get the groceries, whatever.
Yeah.
That's cool. I got to come check it out.
Yeah, you should.
What's the name of it?
So I'm changing the name.
Okay. So we'll wait.
Yeah. So it'll be hopefully totally changed over by the end of the summer.
Okay.
Because right now I bought them separately, 2 different names.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the one in Naperville is Beach for Dogs. The one in Downers Grove is Downers Grove Dog Training and Grooming.
Okay.
Right on the nose.
Yep.
And then I'm changing the name to Canine Kingdom, and they'll both be the Canine Kingdom.
That's a great name.
I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I like it.
So with that, also hopefully to get a little bit of scale out of the marketing and stuff. But this is one of those things that's been pretty cool, because my family has been involved in this. So like I am probably the most busy I've ever been in my life.
Okay.
But what's nice is that like for a portion of my busyness, like my family can participate.
Yeah.
So it's like, even though I'm still doing something, I'm not away. And, so like my kids will come with me and, we'll drop off, supplies or do something at the store, or we've been doing events, like we were doing adoption events. So a rescue would come in and they'd bring a bunch of adoptable dogs, and my kids would be in the room, cleaning up after the dogs when they make the messes and corralling them. And, and they love it, which in hindsight, it's like, well, that's probably one of the nice things about not having the accounting firm, because that wouldn't exist as much.
Right. Yeah.
Like this is like, they love dogs, so,
right.
So that makes it a little bit easier too, because it's like I'm super busy trying to do these things, again, with the underlying purpose of like, the idea here is for me to do this so that I can spend time with them.
Yes.
But this thing is demanding my time.
Right.
So if I can pull them in on it,
Yeah.
that, and also want to be inspiring too, right? Like I don't, like working at in a corporate job is fine, and for some people that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I know that like for me, it's not fine. I never liked it. For me, it was like, oh, if I do that, they'll pay me, and then I can use that money to go do the other things. I'll do that.
Yeah.
That's fine. so trying to show my kids like, look, there's other things that you could be doing. So like in addition to like doing stuff like at the business, you know, when I'm trying to make decisions and go over the financials, like I go over it with him. Like I'll talk through it with my son, and like I know that he probably gets 5% of what I'm telling him,
Yeah.
but he seems to enjoy it for, I mean, maybe 10 minutes. Like it's not going to do it for an hour,
Right.
but like I can go through and show him what I'm doing, what I'm looking at, and you know, trying to hopefully like develop the relationship, but also, you know, give him another perspective of like, yeah, you could go to school, go to college and get a job and go do that, but that's not the only thing that you can do with your life.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Especially if you have the wherewithal. And a lot of the knowledge you get is empirical. It's from doing it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and yeah, there's a lot of ways to make a living, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got dog grooming.
Yep. And training.
And training.
Yeah. Daycare, boarding. We got it all.
So when is after you change the name, you probably do like a grand opening or another grand opening or
Yeah.
a soft opening and then
Yeah.
a party or something.
Yep. That is the plan.
Cool.
That's the plan. And in fact, I'm trying to get, there's on WGN they do an around town thing like once a week, I think.
Okay.
And it's like a little clip, and they come to your business and, you know, tell them what you're doing and all that stuff.
Okay.
So I'm trying to get that teed up. That way, when I relaunch it, we can do kind of like soft opening, you know, whatever, with the ribbon for a bit. I mean, it's been there for a while, but like the one in Naperville's been there for almost 9 years. The one in Downer's been there for 5, going on 6.
Okay.
But whatever, it's changing the name, you know, making an event, have some food and people come out, and then try to do this thing to try to get more attention, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, a lot of times you get new ownership, you get new ideas, you get the things that kind of were wonky about certain things straightened out, and then it's like a great place, right? I mean, there's so many things like that, and they last for a long time because,
Well, I hope so.
well, if there's not that many options, it's either some people just say, forget it, we didn't have a good experience, you know
Mhm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And if to reintroduce it and bring in everything new and a new experience, that's what comes with it.
Yeah.
New customers,
Yep.
new dogs,
Yeah,
happy people,
That's
people
what I'm trying to
taking
do.
vacations.
Right? That stuff's going to happen, right? So, you know, seeing if we can capture it. I mean, that's kind of the...
That's cool. We got to talk a little after. I got some other questions for you.
Yeah.
But doing. We're looking pretty good up here. What do you think?
Yeah.
So on the agenda,
Mm-hmm.
what's your middle name?
What's my middle name? Why?
I'm supposed to have like a lot of things to say, you know, so I'm just coming up with the most basic question I can ask you right now.
Yeah.
Do you have a middle name?
I do have a
Did I
middle name.
ask you that
No.
last time I saw you?
No.
What you don't have to say.
Yeah, no, it's Vincent, named after my great-grandfather.
Vincent.
Yeah.
It's an Italian name.
It is.
You have a very Italian name.
If you count James.
Yeah.
Could.
I'll count it. You
Yeah.
could.
Yeah.
It's interesting that our daughters have the same name.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
How did that happen?
You know, I don't know, because we weren't talking.
No.
So, but when we first got married, I didn't want kids, and neither did my wife.
Yeah.
Then that evolved, and she wanted kids. I still didn't want kids. When she evolved into the wanting kids, she wanted a boy and a girl named James and Ava. And this was before I wanted kids.
Yeah.
And then eventually I was like, oh no, I think I want to have kids. And then we did. And we had a boy and a girl, and So I think she had those names picked out probably, man, like probably like 3 or 4 years before my son was born.
Oh, wow. And your son was born first?
Yep.
Yeah, we both have older boys and younger girls,
Yeah.
but obviously yours are a little further. You had kids in your early 30s?
Yeah. So my son just turned 9, and then my daughter turns 7 in 2 weeks.
And they both in school, primary school? What kind of what
Yeah,
what do
first
they
and
call it?
third. Yeah.
First and third.
Well, they just finished, so they're going second, fourth.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's that?
It's pretty cool because I moved to Illinois when I was just a little bit younger than my son,
Okay.
and he goes to the same school that I went to.
Really?
Yeah, which is kind of cool.
That is neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, neither of my kids go to this school. Well, they'll be going to school. He's going to be in kindergarten.
Yeah.
But yeah, they don't. It's new. Where did you move from? New York?
New York, yeah.
Then you moved back to New York as an adult?
As
You
an
met your
adult.
wife in New York?
No. So after high school, I went to Florida.
Okay.
You visited me there.
I did. We hung out in Florida. Oh, yeah, this way. I was going to say, this reminds me of bringing up the death. I remember we were flying somewhere because around that time you were doing a lot of stunt
Yep.
bike riding.
Mm-hmm.
And I was flying with you to someplace. We were on a plane, and this young girl was like terrified of flying, and she was with her boyfriend. Or I'm making all of this up, but it's somewhere along these lines. You fit in this memory
Okay.
as being a part of this, and this girl is like terrified. She's like, I don't want to fly. I'm like, I want to get out. And you're like, listen, just she has a boyfriend next to her, and you're like, listen, if it makes you feel any better, you're gonna die.
No way.
Like either
I don't remember this.
you were like, if the plane crashes, we're all gonna die. She was like there, and you're like, no, but listen, like there's nothing you can do. So either just like relax and just be okay, because there's no other option, right? So don't worry about it. And she was like,
Did it work?
she shut the fuck up. I don't know. I don't know if it worked, but she stopped complaining about it. But
Oh man, I wish I don't remember that. Although that does sound like something I would say.
you gave it to her straight. You were like, there's no reason. There's no good reason to be upset.
Right.
Or scared.
Yeah.
Because if the plane crashes, you're going to die.
And if it doesn't, you're going to get to where you're going.
Right. Yes.
So
Right.
Either way,
Right.
you're either happy or it doesn't matter.
Right. So forget about it. But yeah.
Oh man, that sounds like something I would say. But yeah, no, I don't remember that.
Yeah, we were on a plane for something. We went to a few places. I don't know if you remember. I'm sure
Yeah.
you went to a lot. I came to a few, or maybe a couple.
Yeah.
I
There
came
was
to
some-
Florida.
You came to Florida.
Your stunt.
You came to Texas with me once?
I came to Texas, and then I think we went to like Oklahoma or something,
Oklahoma?
or
St. Louis?
Iowa.
Iowa? Good,
There
yeah.
was like there was like a,
Now the Christian camp, that was in Texas.
but there was another. It was the same. It was a Christian camp, but it wasn't in Texas. It was a
Yeah.
camp.
Yeah.
And there was a
No.
reservoir.
It was no. It was a Christian camp in Texas outside of Houston.
Yeah, in Dallas, or no?
No, it was
we went
outside
to
of Houston.
Went to. Okay, what about?
I remember this very clearly because that guy
Yeah.
paid me with a fake check.
Oh, the Christian,
Yep.
the priest. He was a
The-
minister.
The minister.
The minister
Yeah.
fucked you.
Yeah.
Sorry. The minister paid you with a fake check,
Yep.
of all people.
All people.
See, the money, it says in God we trust. Doesn't say that on checks.
Doesn't say that on checks.
Watch out for that.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of this time, maybe it's the same place. There was like a reservoir, like a long cement bank,
Yep.
and then they set up launch ramps
Mm-hmm.
into the water.
Right.
That was there.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I remember that. Remember that distinctly because there was a few significant events that took place while we were there. So he bounced that check. I blew the transmission on my bike.
Yep.
And then I had to get my money back.
Is it hard to get your money back from a priest? I mean, I know it's hard to get your virginity back, but I don't know if you can say that. Here's the thing: if you're a comic, if you're a comedian, you can say whatever you want.
Commodian?
Sure.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
You can say whatever you want, and you just got the pass. I'm a comedian.
Yeah,
I'm a
right.
comedian.
Yeah.
So that's
So whatever.
whatever.
Yeah.
I don't fit myself into a box, and when I do, I don't use the traditional method.
That's
I
right.
leave it in, and kids come out. It's like magic. The portal opens up.
Yeah.
The universe expels more of myself. The printer did her job.
Perfect.
Now I got copies.
Yeah.
We're in the Matrix. I am Mr. Smith.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, so I was in Florida, then I moved to California. Then I came back to Illinois to go to college.
Yeah.
Then I got my first job out of college in Texas,
okay.
which was funny because I got that job because of my motorcycle stuff, because the guy that I ended up hiring me was a big fan of a motorcycle show that was hosted by a guy that I used to ride with. And so on my resume, I had all my stuff. And he was like, "Hey, do you know this guy?" And I was like, "Yeah. Yeah, no, I know." We talked about that for like 45 minutes. And then he's like, "All right, cool. So you want to work here?" And I was like, "Yeah. Okay."
And that guy.
And then from there, I went to New York. And
okay.
then I was in New York, and then I moved back here 10 years ago. 10 years ago, like
You've
right
been
now.
here for 10 years?
Yeah, like right now. It's been 10
Wow.
years right now.
Cool.
Yeah.
In Naperville originally or Chicago?
Yes. No, so when I moved back, I was like, I was at first I was living in a hotel in Warrenville
Okay.
until I could find a place to live. And then I was in Lisle,
Okay.
and then I moved to Naperville.
You knew you wanted to live in the area.
Yeah, I mean, for two reasons. I mean, when we were in New York, we decided we wanted to have kids. And New York is an unreasonable, unless you make like a unreasonable amount of money or you're willing to commute an irresponsible amount of time.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it was like, okay, well, I don't want to do either of those things. So wanted to leave New York. And so while we started looking, my sister got pregnant. And I was like,
cool.
oh, that would be kind of cool. Like if we live out there and then, you know, our kids could grow up together. Because like when I was younger, before we moved to Illinois, I lived near all my cousins.
Yeah.
And we hung out all the time.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. Did like little vacations and stuff together. And it was like just a literal library full of amazing memories.
Yep.
So I was like, oh, I definitely want to do that. And she lives in Naperville.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, want to have kids. We want to leave New York. She's having a kid. It's like, okay, so then let's go move over there. And we live like,
Close.
yeah, like 1.5 miles, 2 miles from each other.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Is it you have an older sister and
Older and younger.
yeah.
And an older brother.
Yeah. Everyone's still local or not so much, just your sister?
My youngest sister is in North Carolina.
Okay.
And she'll stay there. She went there for her undergrad and she just accepted a job in Charlotte starting in the fall.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Out of school?
A lot of school. Yeah, she's a OBGYN.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
So a lot of school.
Yeah.
So she finishes in 8 days with her residency and everything, and then she's done. And then she takes her boards in July and then starts working at a practice in September.
So you got 2 doctors in
Yeah.
the family.
Yep.
That's good.
It's useful.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, especially if when you're self-employed, if you don't go to the doctor. You don't have to pay the doctor. Save some money.
Yeah.
But insurance is up there, no?
Yeah.
You get it through. That's the good thing about having a nice
Right. Yeah.
contract with a company.
Right.
You get good insurance.
You get insurance. Yeah.
Yeah, it's unreal.
So bounced around a bit, and then, almost like I was telling you earlier, I was in Charlotte. I was interviewing for a job, if I would have taken that job, I would have been moving to Charlotte like right now.
And you said no to that job.
I did say no. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. No, it was. Yeah.
Okay, we get it.
Yeah.
No more riding. No more stunt bikes. Motorcycles. No
No.
skating. No. What do you do to stay trim and fit?
Work out and jujitsu. That's the extent of what I'm doing. I would love to ride the dirt bikes specifically.
Yeah.
But yeah, my kids don't seem interested at all. So I was like, I don't want to. That's why I got rid. My last motorcycle I got rid of after my son was born, because my wife wouldn't go with me. So I was like, I'm gonna go ride by myself.
Yeah.
It's like, all right. So get rid of it, and then try to like take him to car shows. I mean, he likes cars and stuff, but he's not into it like I am.
Yeah.
And so like I'd like him. It'd be cool if like he was into it, because I would definitely get a dirt bike and go ride.
Does he like jujitsu?
No.
I want my kid to like jujitsu. I hope he does. I haven't put him in it yet. I want to put him in it if he wants to.
I know. This is tough, because like for me it's like learning something like that, a jujitsu or judo or wrestling.
Yeah.
Some type of thing where you learn how to like control another person's body.
Okay.
I think is like a really good skill.
I thought you were gonna say control yourself, but
that's part of the
it.
process.
Right.
Right.
You can't
And-
control someone else if you can't control yourself.
Right. And so and that learning curve is just, filled with humility.
Yes.
Right.
For sure.
Which is all great experiences, so I think learning something like that starting at a young age is really good.
Yeah. For sure.
So like I was trying to get him to it, but I don't know, he doesn't like it. So
It's
make him
weird
go.
though too, because it's like, you first of all, it's a little gross, like jujitsu.
It is.
If you're rolling around like
Sweating.
you're sweat. I mean, if you're a kid, you might not be, but being a dude, it's a little gross. Like,
Mhm.
I don't care too much, but it's intimate to say the least. And although it's a part of combat and it does teach a lot and it's necessary, I don't know much about the little, but like some kids, they don't like, you have to be comfortable. Like, you don't just be touching somebody like as a kid, like holding them. And you know what I mean? It's like, it's time to hold them. Like your whole body, they say, is like an erogenous zone as like a child. You know what I mean? Like in the right situation. I mean, anywhere I touch my son, he's ticklish,
Yeah. Right.
and in other situations, like doesn't affect him.
Yeah.
Right. So like if you're in a situation where you're like more sensitive than you
Mm-hmm.
are, maybe he doesn't like it. I don't
Right.
know. Maybe he does. I have no idea. I haven't tried to get him to do it, but it could
Yeah.
be a little, there's like a social
There is.
component to
I mean,
it.
I think you'll see whenever your kids try it, but like for my son, it's like he doesn't like the training part. It's difficult. It's a very difficult thing to learn. So
Yeah.
it's like, you learn one technique, and it's full of steps.
Yep.
Right. And when you're trying to learn at first, you learn them in steps. Eventually, once you start to understand concepts, you don't necessarily need to memorize steps. But in the beginning, it's a good part of the learning process to like, first you do this and this and this, right?
How do you break guard? How do you pass?
Right.
And all this.
And why do you do it in this order, right? And so he's like a super high energy kid.
Mhm.
So like to sit there and then listen to the steps and then try to put the steps in place. He's not interested. He loves the sparring part.
Yeah.
Oh, we're just going to fight. Okay. But the problem is because he's not paying attention to the steps.
Yeah.
He has no idea what he's doing when he's sparring.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I still make him go.
Okay. That's good. Hey, they're not.
Because he can't tell me why he doesn't like it. I was like, when you tell me why you don't like it, you can stop going. But saying I don't like it,
yeah,
this is not going to work. I was like, because to me, it sounds like you don't like it because it's hard.
Well, sometimes they don't like it because they just don't want to go today or right now, or they don't want to stop what they're doing.
So there's a lot of that.
They're kids.
Right. They're like, no, it's, Monday at 5:30, and it's like they're playing in the yard with their friends, and it's like, hey, we got to go.
Yeah.
He's like, nope,
That's
I don't
why
want to go.
I used to be in piano lessons when I was really little.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember it was a nice day. It was like, time to go to piano. I was like, I don't want to go. I don't like it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you don't? I'm like, no. And I just wanted to play. So
right.
she let me, she took me out.
Yeah.
Subsequently, I don't know how to play the piano.
Yep.
I like to play with it.
I had the exact same experience. Same thing.
Yeah.
Piano lessons, and it's definitely one of those things where it's like, man, I do actually like the piano. I would have liked to have, stayed with it, but it was like, no, it was a Wednesday at 3:30. It was like, no, it's sunny out. I'm going skating. Like, there's no way that I'm sitting in here
doing this.
Right. Yeah.
Staying on topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I do with them though is I attack everybody in my home all the time. I'll just grab them. They got to get out. You got, and so it's like, you're going to learn something. Yeah.
You're going to learn. Yeah.
So I do it with him. I do it with my daughter. I do a little bit with my wife. She definitely doesn't like it.
No, of course.
I think it's fucking hilarious, but
yeah. There's that's like a lot of, you went to China. A lot of the things, that's like a lot of martial arts is a lot of their life. I mean, it's a lot about discipline and their whole religion, if they have a religion, if you want to even call it that, because it's not a religion if you consider it to Christianity or Judaism. In my opinion, I don't know much about it. It's more about, I don't know anything about it. I'm just making things up. It's more about consciousness, being in the moment, which Christianity has nothing to do with.
That's right.
So they're not really the same thing, in my opinion.
Unless you think about religion from the construct of it being a philosophy of how to interact with your community.
Yeah. No, then it does they fall in the same boat.
It's kind of like, this is how we deal with people.
But yes, you're right. Then in that respect, it is a religion. I just wish there was more of that type of religion in American society from a young age. Like yoga, it forces you, and we're such an abstract and everything people in Western society, especially with the phones now and the kids. It's like, what do we do? You understand, like you have this mental understanding of it, and it's different from the doing, obviously. And then that doing in yoga requires you to try and sync yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Shut off your mind if you can. And as you breathe, as you inhale, you stretch. And as you exhale, you collapse. And moving with your breath and holding breaths and letting your lungs collapse and your body stay. And then realizing on that next inhale, you have more space to expand. That, I'm going to use this word again. I like this word, empirical understanding. When I was doing yoga, when I was doing a little bit of jiu-jitsu with my cousin who was actually doing a lot and training. I don't know much, but I did a little bit. Gave me like a self-awareness I didn't have. Like, like my breath changes my physiology. Mm-hmm. And it's different when it's like, then it's like someone tells you that and you're like, I get it. And then you keep holding your breath. Well, you know what I mean? It's not the same thing as...
This is the mind-body connection you're referring to with the Bruce Lee thing, right? It's like, that's exactly what that is. And it's funny because like when people first start training jiu-jitsu, this is like the first comment I make to them is like, breathe. Just focus on breathing when you're sparring. Like, don't worry about anything else, because as soon as you realize that you're actually holding your breath, then you start to develop this connection between what's happening in your brain and what your body's doing.
Yep.
Because in the very beginning, like almost everybody, the instinct is, especially when they're trying to get out of a position, is they and then they do this big explosive, movement.
And initially, that deep breath might get you that explosion.
And then
but if it doesn't erupt, you're toast.
And then you get burnt. You just gas out really quickly. And then it's like, and then they're not realizing that they're not breathing. And it's like, no, you gotta breathe.
Yeah.
And bring it all in. Yeah.
I like that. That's why I like, that in my opinion is like a component of religion, if you want to call it something. That, because if these are all components and we put them in the same way, say it's a way to engage with your society or socially. But they're all important. Like having an abstract moral understanding, I think has a good place, right?
Yeah.
Like don't kill your neighbor, don't screw your neighbor's wife.
This
don't
is good.
fuck off.
This is good if you're trying to have like a relatively calm society.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like a relatively peaceful life.
Right.
Right. Like if you do those things, you probably be okay. And now missing from that is like, all right, like mindfulness and consciousness and paying attention to that. And like, how do you do that? Like, what's good ways to do that? If someone say, well, yoga is a good way to do that. You're like, oh, well, that's like a type of religion. The yoga can be, right?
Can be. Yeah.
If you're like, oh, like judo's a way to like do that.
Mm-hmm.
Most people be like, well, judo's not religion. And you're like, well, there's components that are important. And like mindfulness is one of those things. If you could put yourself in a scenario where the practice is making the mind and body move together as one thing. Even skating is like that in a lot of ways. It has to be one thing. It's like a dance.
Yep.
And it helps cultivate a part of us that's like really important. I mean, it's like the majority of their society. It's how they understand themselves.
Right.
They don't understand and this is just, it's like things, they are more in the understanding of things come out of the world. They don't come into the world. Like a flower isn't made, a flower grows. And all those might be like fundamentally like similar in the ways in which we understand it in American society. We have a very much like everything is built, everything, and the way life actually behaves is like, no, everything is evoked. Like nothing is created externally by manipulation, fundamentally with longevity. And like if you don't have that in part of your fundamental basis of what it means to like be alive, which is I think what religion is about, like you're missing, there's a huge blind spot there. Like, hey America, that's like a huge blind spot. And maybe that's why there was like, in the 60s and 70s, there was a huge boom. That's when like yoga showed up here, when all these psychedelics showed up and all this open-mindedness and, forget the system. And like, why did that happen? Like you must have had to forget that none of that was real in order for it to be like revolutionary. Like, oh, Colorado's not like a real place. That's just an imaginary line. And you're like, no way. like you had to have, had to have lost your mind, like as people. And we did, and we do. And I think we're kind of born into that. And I don't know if we'll ever like, either like you're a completely wild rogue society and there's no faint imagination that's going to dispel that because it's so glaringly obvious, or you're in a society that has rules and structure and you have to recognize like, yeah, you're a rational thing, but you're also like a feeling thing. And the rational thing is like very considered and articulated. And the emotional thing is very wild and chaotic and crazy. But the goal is not to get rid of that. because you get rid of the whole thing.
Right.
So I don't know how good we got to do some jujitsu. I haven't done it in a while.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Went this morning.
Did you?
Yeah.
I want to get in. I've been like, everything is like a big toll, you know? Skating's a toll.
Yeah.
Like you're falling.
Yeah.
Soccer is like, it can be because everyone's out for blood. They want that cup that
Yeah.
they're never going to.
Never.
I don't know.
It's like a time passed, buddy.
Right.
Yeah.
I get punched in the face. My meniscus. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. No, we should do it.
Should. It's so much fun. And to that point, right, it's like, I feel like these types of things to have in your life are good because it's like, that is something that when you're doing it, you have to be in it. You have to be focused and you have to be getting that kind of mind-body connection, and you can't really be thinking about anything else. So it gets you centered on like the present.
Yeah.
You know, and also I think anytime that you can do something very difficult is good.
Yeah.
And like it's always challenging. It's always hard.
Right.
You know, it's like, you know, no matter how long I do it, it's like there's always going to be someone stronger, bigger, better. And then to the other point that you brought up earlier is like, there's also days where like my body doesn't do the thing that it did yesterday.
Yeah.
I have no idea why. It's just
Right.
not working.
Right.
All right. So it's like, you know, every day is going to be difficult for a different reason.
Yeah.
And this is my favorite way to start the day. I love it. I get it done in the morning, and it's like, it sets such a great tone for the day.
Is there a class you go to in the
Yeah.
morning? How early is it?
6:30?
That's a good time.
Yeah. 6:30, 7:30 is instruction. And then 7:30 after is like if you want to roll.
Okay.
And since it's in the morning, most people cut out like around 8-ish. So you could usually get 20 or 30 minutes of rolls in.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun because then you get to really kind of see.
Yeah, then you get to get like the workout in a little bit. Because I mean, that's the other fun part about it is that like, you know, you do like kickboxing or something and you go to spar with someone, like you're not going 100%. Like you guys got to go to work. You know what I'm saying? You're not trying to like 100% head kick somebody. You know, like no one's trying to do that.
Right.
This isn't the world championships. You're not fighting for a belt. Like people are just getting a good workout and maybe learning a skill.
Yeah.
But in jiu-jitsu, since it's, you know, there's no striking, and I mean, you still can get hurt, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
But you can really push, you know, you can try to go at 100%, especially if you and your training partner know what they're doing, because you can do it in a safe way. And you can really exhaust yourself. Like there's definitely days where like, you know, I'm having like a really shitty week or something. And to just go and just like go all out. And even better is like when you go all out and then you have someone that just crushes you, you know, feels, it's like, great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now I can get back to this imaginary problem that's been sitting in my brain, because that guy could have murdered me 7 times in the past 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So like this other thing is like, it'll be fine.
It'll be okay. Yeah.
It'll be fine.
Yeah. It was like that with yoga too, like hot yoga.
Yeah.
I was doing that before I was training, and then I didn't do it for a while, and then I went back to it, and it was like really hard, you know, like I had a really hard time.
Yeah.
And you look around and there's like all these like young moms that are like warrior hand. I'm like, is she got no hand? What is she holding herself up by? You know what I mean? And you're like sweating and like shaking, and like I'm having a hard time following. And it's just like, I'm not who I think I am. Like, or not that I'm not who I think I am. It's that like, it's humbling. Like
humbling.
It tells you who you are.
It's great.
You know exactly where you are. And then it's like, don't get down on yourself about where you're at. It's like when you can't draw the circle, don't get down on yourself about where you're at. You know,
Just keep putting the work in.
just keep putting the work in
Yeah.
because it's got ebbs and flows.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why I'd like to get into that.
Should.
I'd like to do it. We should do it. You ever done hot yoga?
Yeah. Yeah, when I had a bunch of neck problems, and so I was trying to avoid surgery, and one of the doctors was like, you should do hot yoga, and really, because it's supposed to be primarily focused on getting your spine strong,
Yeah.
like all that whole core.
Yeah. Column, whatever you want to call it.
So I was doing it a ton. It definitely helped, but ultimately, like, I had such a structural problem that I just had to have surgery. But it was great. You know, I stopped going because it's like, because of scheduling, I have to make choices.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, and every place I found the hot yoga was like, this class is like an hour and a half.
Yeah, they're long.
So it's like, man, that's 2 hours, best case scenario, round trip, and to get cleaned up before I got to go do something else.
Yep.
And I still want to go to the gym, and I still want to do jujitsu and spend time with my family and go shooting and stuff. So it's like, you got, you know, something's got to go. And it was like,
Yeah.
oh. But that said, like, I'm definitely going to get back into it. I don't know if I'm going to do the hot yoga, but I've lost so much mobility and I can feel it now.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, I need to put that back on the priority list, because that is more important than me lifting weights.
Yeah. It probably is. Yeah. Well, it's probably as important. Lifting weights is important.
It is.
Holding weights.
But that gives you like the structural stability.
Yeah. You need that core. You need the posture.
Yeah.
It's nice to like have different things to get into, like skating or jujitsu or yoga. And then like at certain times, like pushing yourself way beyond what's healthy. Let's put it that way. What would be considered healthy?
Yeah, it's funny because I talk about this with my wife. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
She thinks I'm fucking insane. But I'm like, no, you got to, I mean, probably shouldn't do it all the time.
No.
But it's good to do.
It's good. Like, I've never done marathons. Have you?
No. Then there's zero chance I'll do something like that. I mean, my body would fucking disintegrate. Yeah.
It could.
Yeah. I mean, it's my ankles, my knees, my back, everything's just so damaged that like no running.
Yeah. I think, well, I find it, if you put yourself into a very competitive situation, that's evoked, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rise and shine.
Yep.
You know?
Right.
Ship up or shape out, or shape up or ship out.
Yeah, right.
So like, those are good ways to do it. Other than that, it's really hard to do it completely alone. I don't think I ever have, personally. Yeah. I mean, maybe, like, it's hard to like find yourself in the situation. Like, I've gotten deep into stuff. I'm like, okay, that was like a great session, or like that was good. But like pushing past what I thought was like safe or healthy, it seems only feasible in like a competitive situation, like a real game, like a final game, or like a competition, or like with a friend, or like someone is next to you and you're both keeping each other like
pressing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you can do it. We're going to do it. We're going to finish this, or all right, how long are we going to roll jiu-jitsu? Oh, we're going to do it like an ungodly amount of until you know that like you're going to be in a new space when you're done.
Yeah.
Like, I think I did it with skating last year. I was part of the competition, and I just kept pushing myself. I was like blind. I had no expectations. I was not trying to do like anything except land one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, at the end of it, it was just me and one other kid standing, like, because it's not like time's up. You just keep they're at the last spot. I mean, no one's leaving,
right?
Or when they're done, it's done. And like, there was no one left, and it was just us. And I was like, man, I was exhausted. And I remember being like, dude, before it happened, my knee kept popping out. My knee dislocated a couple times because I had like a meniscus thing. But
Oh.
like I'm familiar with it, like not in a way that hurt, like injures me. Like I'm in a way where I can get it back to where it was. And like it was like it's hard to tell if it like cracks or like pops out
Mhm.
or it's just like I'm rolling past a certain, and like sometimes it'll be like intense pain, like wow, I can't move it at all that direction. And sometimes it'll just like knock past. And I'll be like, whoa, how did that happen? Like usually it gets stuck and then like there's like a pain. And like this is where it was like, oh, I think I like healed myself. Like I think it actually helped heal my knee because I didn't hurt it. I'm not saying like you blow out an elbow, keep fucking
Keep going,
playing.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
like don't play through like a broken foot. Like I wasn't hurting it. I wasn't injuring it, but I was using something that was injured, like, and I was babying it, but I just kept going. I just was being safe with it. And because I started off slow and like gradually progressed throughout the day, and then like by the time you're in you get to a point of like synergy where like you're like rubber, like everything is loose.
Yeah.
You know, like your
Right.
knees are loose. They're gonna
Right.
work. And then it gives them like that memory of like what it was like to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that I was like, oh wow, like this is really something worth doing. Like not necessarily the competition, but getting myself into that.
Into that zone.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, this is healing for sure. And I haven't done it. I haven't been able to get back into that zone. It's been about a year.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think by yourself is tough, but if you can get there by yourself, though, I feel like that's a victory
Yeah.
because it's such an internal like connection with your mind, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, so I love little challenges like this. So I try to do this with some level of frequency.
Okay.
And like it's always I feel like physical is always the easiest way. Some type of physical activity. I
Yeah.
mean, because I think anything else is like I don't know how you would do it. So it's just like trying to pass the point of when your brain tells you to stop and get to the point where your body doesn't work.
Yes. Yep.
You're just like, no, your brain's like, I'm done. And it's like, no, I'm not.
Right.
And just keep, and then go, oh, look at that. Like, I thought I was done, but I'm still going.
Yep.
So, gonna
So,
keep going.
Yeah. What does that mean? I was wrong.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
I was like, stop being such a fucking bitch, dude. You know?
Yeah. Work through it.
Work through it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's important.
It is because I feel like, and I've been trying to do some of this stuff with my son, and what I'm trying to articulate is that, like, I feel as though that this is incredibly analogous to life in all situations when you're going through different things, because it's like you'll be in a difficult scenario and you don't know what the outcome is going to be.
Yep.
But just because you don't know or because you're afraid, that shouldn't be what makes the decision.
No, shouldn't. But if you're honest with yourself, some people, they don't have capacity for certain things.
Yeah.
You know?
But this is good to know.
Right. It's good to know. You're not going to know that unless you do it.
That's right. You know, and that's absolutely one of the things I try to get across is that, like, it doesn't matter. What matters is you know.
Right.
Like, oh, you know, whatever, you can do 100 burpees, right? But if you cheated on them or didn't do all of them but said you did or whatever, it doesn't matter. The outcome is not what's important. What's important is what happened in your head.
Right.
Did you do it or not?
Yeah.
Did you learn something? You know?
I wonder if that's something that's taught or if it's just something that innately, like, you find. It's like math. Like math is like discovered. Is it like always there? And then like you have kids and you have all of this responsibility. And then it's kind of like not that you have no choice, but you like realize like it's there, or you realize like you know in your heart like you might not know how or when, but you know like, oh, I'm just not gonna stop until my muscles or my body stops. And if that's the limiting factor,
Right.
then that's God's
I don't know, man.
decision.
It's an interesting concept because, I mean, I'm sure like you could think back to like when you started skating.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, in the beginning, it was incredibly difficult.
Oh yeah, a lot of pain,
A lot of pain.
a lot of pain,
Right.
a lot of pain.
Why did you keep going?
No idea.
Like, no idea.
No idea.
Right. It's the same thing as like I started with skateboarding, then got into rollerblading. And these are things that are like very difficult to learn and painful to learn because like when you're failing at doing something, you're falling for the most part.
Well, back then, yeah. Now you could work your way into things with new stuff. But yes,
Yeah.
you're inducing physical trauma.
Right.
You're throwing yourself down a flight of stairs and you lose your sense of the ground.
Yeah.
You're gonna bounce.
You're going to bounce, you know?
Yeah.
And then it was the same thing getting into the street bikes.
Oh yeah.
It's like, you know, you crash a street bike. It's like most people, they'll crash a motorcycle and never ride again.
Right. Right.
It's like I would crash a motorcycle, fix it, and then ride it again immediately.
You know what? I'm sure of this. Okay. I'm gonna say this. You are probably the only person ever in the history of street bike riding, all right, to do a high chair wheelie to the bar and pull it off the bar without a handbrake.
No, not the only one.
You were probably the first.
I was one of the early ones that did it. Yeah.
When you were doing that, you didn't have a handbrake.
No.
A lot of people didn't ride with handbrakes.
Right.
Now, if you're stunt riding, you got everyone. You have a handbrake.
They got all the things.
You got everything. It's a fucking.
Which is a funny concept in itself.
Why do you think you weren't the first person? Because, I mean, who else? I've never seen any. I don't watch tons of stunts. I'm not an enthusiast.
There was someone else that did it. I remember. Oh man, what was his name? I don't know. It was right around. It was like because that was the time where like handbrakes were like starting to come in.
Yeah, and they were hated on.
And they were hated on because
Right.
it was like
Cheating.
you're cheating.
Yeah,
right?
you're doing a high chair wheelie without the risk.
Yeah, that's right.
The risk about the high chair is that you don't have a brake.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's still risk, right? You're just mitigating it a little bit because that handbrake isn't going to save you if you chop it too much, right?
Right. Okay.
Um,
Right. Yes.
So like, but it's so stupid when you think about it too, because like what we were doing at that time was like we were trying to be these performers on motorcycles and like in a dangerous thing.
Yep.
And like here was something that could help mitigate some of the risks so that you could continue to do the thing you wanted to.
Right.
But it was like, nah, that's not real. If you're not doing it on a stock bike with no handbrake, like you're not even doing it.
Right.
Right. And it's like, you are, dude. I mean,
No,
it's still incredibly difficult. And like,
Right.
you know,
To your peers in the community, it gets hated on. But to people in the stands,
they have no idea.
They have no concept. It's just a beautiful show.
Yeah.
With it's
Yeah.
a ballet with
It's a ballet
machine.
with a machine. And like, and I think that's, there's same thing happened in freestyle motocross, right? I mean, now they jump and they land on an air pad.
Oh, right.
But in the beginning, they were metal to metal. And if you weren't doing metal to metal,
Yep.
you're a bitch,
Right.
And it's like,
You're cheating.
or like you like doing this for a living and you'd like to not die.
Right. That's the other
So
side.
that you can continue to do it,
Well, yeah.
But no, I was definitely one of the early ones because I was one of those people that was like, nah, no handbrake, kept my bike really close to stock. So I had a little bit of gearing on it, not much, stock handlebars.
Yeah. You had stock handlebars. You didn't have bicycle bars, big.
Yeah. So my thought was like, I could get on any motorcycle anywhere and do my show.
Yep.
I didn't need it to be modified. I could still do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But learning that though, I mean, that was And it's so similar to skating, right? Where it's like, there's a moment where you're full commitment.
Yes.
You have to.
Yes.
You just have to be committed.
You have to turn off whatever has doubt.
Right.
And you have to.
We're going.
Yeah.
And we're going to see what happens.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And then I mean, I did it in stages. So like the way that I got up to do it that way was, at first I did it sitting down. So I had my foot covering my brake.
Yeah.
And to see what would happen with my clutch, to get a feel for it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I think that works. So then from sitting, then I went to standing on the seat, because that way, if it didn't work out, I could bail.
Off out.
And then once I got really comfortable with, because it was sound.
Yeah.
It was listening to what the motor was doing to know where I needed to be in the RPM to be like, all right, if I pull a clutch in now, there's enough engine brake to pull me back.
Right.
But then the gamble was sitting, standing, and the sitting on the gas tank are all different balance points.
Right.
So
higher up you get on the bike,
the further back that it needs to go. So the more effort to pull it forward.
Oh, I got you.
So it was like, okay, so if I needed to be at whatever 7,000 RPMs when I'm on the seat,
yeah,
I probably need to be at like 10 if I'm on the gas tank.
But so you're almost like hammering it all the way over. You're almost like looping it out.
100%. I gassed it. So, and that was one of the things I learned when I was on the seat, was that when I first started doing it on the seat, I would get to the balance point, I'd blip the throttle and let the bike fall softly to the bar.
Yeah.
And what happened to me a few times was, as it was coming back, you know, the bike is in a balance point, so it's really light.
Yeah.
It would wobble a little bit. And then sometimes I'd clip the corner of my bar, and the bike would just twist, right? And then you just went flying.
Yeah, high side.
So then it was like, okay, well, then this is to the commitment. It's like, well, now I'm up and I need to ride the throttle all the way to the bar, but not too much.
But not too much.
Because you give it too much, you'll snap the subframe.
Right. You want to keep yourself from engaging any sort of back pressure. You basically just want it to be like a neutral, which isn't a neutral, because there's always back pressure on a bike. Right. So you want to just keep that momentum light. You want to basically let it feel like it's falling.
Yeah, but still driving.
Yeah, so it requires you to be on the gas.
Yeah, and then you pull the clutch in, and now you got to wait. You got to wait for the RPMs to drop, and then let the clutch out.
And not too far, because you don't want to slam yourself forward. You don't want to spike yourself over the freeway. Yeah. You don't want to catapult yourself.
Like a mousetrap. That's what I call it. So smack, and then you just... Although in the high chair position is like, it's not as terrible because you don't get tossed as violently.
Okay.
Because you come down, you hit, and then bounce.
Yeah.
In the seated or standing position, you go like spearhead into the ground.
Oh, right. Because it's so light.
Yeah,
it just smacks down.
Head first, yeah.
So you know of other people doing that?
At that time? Yeah, there was a few people that were doing it. But then, you know, most people went to the handbrakes, and then there really wasn't many people. And I continued. I started using a handbrake like very shortly before I stopped riding.
Okay.
And I actually didn't like it for the scraping in the high chair. I didn't like it. It felt like, and it could be because my handbrake mechanism maybe wasn't as strong as maybe it could have been.
Okay.
But it didn't feel like I could pull the bike off the bar as quickly as I could with the engine brake.
Oh, interesting.
Because the bike's all the way far back.
Yeah.
So then what people started doing was they would either add another caliper to their rear rotor.
Oh, shit.
Or they'd put a bigger rotor
and grab it
with bigger caliper.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That makes sense, yeah.
Because on a street bike, that rear brake is tiny because like all the braking is on the front brakes.
Right.
So it was like I had this one and it was running through the same caliper. And so you grab it and I could get a good squeeze on it, but like there was times where like I was back there and I'd be pulling the brake and like it would be like just up and then you're just,
tall
and wobbly. Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah. But then you'd crash, and then I would do it again. You know, I wrecked, broke my ankle, fucking snapped my collarbone a couple times, like doing the stoppies.
Yeah.
Flipped a stoppie, bike landed on me, healed up, did it again. But like that's the thing though, right? Is that like I don't know if that's a learned thing. I mean, I feel like I've approached a lot of things in my life since I was a kid like that. It was like, no, I'm gonna do that. Like I know it's difficult, but like I can do it. I'm pretty sure I could do it.
Yeah.
I won't be the worst one at it. That was one thing that's been like a very frequent thought in my head whenever I saw something. It was like, I'm pretty sure I could do that. And I mean, at a minimum, I don't think I'll be the worst at it. So fucking, it looks fun.
It looks fun, right?
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I can try that.
I mean, I loved it. I mean, my absolute favorite thing on my motorcycle was very like fast. So like second gear, not very fast, but faster second gear combo wheelies. So you're going like, I don't know, 50 or 60 miles an hour and just like just jumping all over the bike. It was so much fun. You know?
I see a lot of that coming there's so many kids. There were not kids in the street when we were riding like there are now.
Yeah.
There was like that whole Rough Riders thing.
Yep.
And there was some dude that was like, for whatever reason, there were like some rides in New York that we used to watch DMX make videos of. Yeah. And then we would go and ride when we were, before all this kind of was more of a thing that you were doing. And there weren't people in the street. I bet you that, I don't know if you remember, there was a ride. We went down Lakeshore Drive from the north side all the way to the south side. And it was, I had my truck, I had a blue Ranger before it got flipped in the mountains in Colorado.
Oh, shit.
And we rode with, there were some Rough Riders, some dudes with the jackets. They came out for this ride. There was a bunch of people. We rode from the north side all the way to the south side. And I was in the bed of my truck. I don't know who was driving it, but I was filming on all this stuff down Michigan Avenue. And I just remember, like, this dude's bike broke down. Like, all right, we'll put it on the truck, you know. He put his truck, he's like sitting in the bed with me. He's got his Rough Rider, maybe he went inside, his Rough Rider jacket on. And just getting terrible footage, like trying to fucking film in the back. And like we pull up like Michigan Avenue and like what was like Madison, like right there. Like State Street, Madison, like, you know, right there. And what's the main strip? That's Michigan Avenue, the main strip.
Yeah.
And the light turns red, you know, like we're supposed to stop. Some kid just rips up like a sit down wheelie and just starts banging out circles, and like all the cars just stop, and then like he's just until the light turns green, and then everyone just rips up wheelies and just wheeling the shit out of their bikes. And like half of these bikes got no lights, no plates, no
serial numbers,
probably
no VIN numbers,
VIN numbers, right? And then like coming back up Michigan Avenue, this kid just like rips up onto the sidewalk and just is like rolling a stoppie, and there's people like screaming and like running because he's like, you know, like, and just like getting out of the way.
I remember that.
And I just like, I don't think a lot of those rides happen ever in Chicago like that.
They do now, man.
Seems like more of a thing.
They're doing them now. But yeah, I mean, I feel like, and I mean, it's hard to know like what happened before I was in that community, but it seemed like there wasn't much going on, and we were kind of like the beginning of that community forming here, at least.
Yeah.
In the US. And we did those rides in every city, man. We did Atlanta, you know, we did Miami and Fort Lauderdale, and did New York and Chicago and Des Moines, Dallas, and LA, you know, I mean, just went all over the place, and we just film us just ripping streets everywhere. And now, like, now you're seeing it, you know, like especially in Chicago, you know, on the weekends, guys come out with dirt bikes and stuff, and they're just ripping everywhere doing it. And
I think now it's like all the kids that thought it was cool, like we did when we were young, are now like the police officers, and they're like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
They think it's cool because it's like, but like when we were doing it, they're like, what are you fucking nuts? What are you doing? What do you mean you're on the, like, what do you mean you came from Aurora? What are you talking about? How did you get here?
Oh man.
But a few of those rides we were on for sure. And you're just like, you know, like you just feel like you're like riding on a cloud or something.
Oh man,
it just,
those were so much fun.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was like, yeah, I mean, just felt like, no, this is my world. I'm gonna do what I want. I'm just gonna do whatever I want, you know, and yeah, I mean, yeah, look back on it, it's like it's like.
I like that. We've been going a long time. Let's leave. This is my world, and I'm gonna do what I want.
Perfect.
That'll be the title.
Good.
Good to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Hopefully you come again soon.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
All right.
Good to see you.
Thank you everyone for watching. See you soon.